You'll never see your ninth birthday. I promise.
I think you're a few years late for that.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this season 13, episode 1 episode of the Cheap Seat Critics podcast. With me today, we have.
Hello, everyone. I'm one of your hosts, a geeky writer.
I'm Crimson Maroon.
And I'm Sprinks. And with us today, we have a very incredible guest, Hummer. Hummer,
Hello.
thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, flew in just for the podcast on a weird looking ship. I saw.
Very funny. Before I get bombarded with it, I'll go down our socials we have. If you're interested in any updates we may or may not have, we are over on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, LetterBox. We're also over on YouTube and Rumble if you're interested in the visual side of things with PNG tubers and a slideshow we have of whatever it is we're covering. And that's all at Cheap Seat Critics Podcast, except... remind you, the Twitter is a CRITIX. We're still trying to maybe find the original out there somewhere, but who knows?
Indeed.
So, yeah, today we're covering Flight of the Navigator, a old Disney film. Before we go into facts I have on it, let's start with everyone's histories. Actually, let's start with our guest today. Hummer, what is your history on the movie Flight of the Navigator?
I have seen this movie probably, best guess, 20 to 30 times, maybe more. It is a favorite.
Okay. With that, we'll go to the opposite side of the scale with Ryder, your history.
Yeah, it's long, illustrious. No, it's not. New to me. Never heard or seen anything from it before. Yeah, this was a first-time experience all around. I haven't seen any clips. Nothing. When I heard the title, I thought of I had the Howard Hughes film starring Leonardo DiCaprio. So.
Oh wow.
All right, and then Crimson, your history.
Pretty much identical. The only thing I knew about this film was the name. I had no visuals. Having watched it, I didn't know any of the lines. If Spriggs has said them in the past, I have forgotten them. So, completely new. First time for the pod.
Gotcha. Yeah, the one I think I say the most out of this film is compliance. More than likely. My history, I guess, the last one here. I've seen this movie about, I'd say, 24 times. It's a movie I grew up on alongside a bunch of other films of older Disney stuff. I quote this regularly with my family, whether they get it or not. That's about it.
Well, Crimson, you and I get to be subjective to Springs constantly making references.
Yeah.
We're going to be held to the standard
now. You'll catch them.
Yeah, that's true.
So, I have some facts to go over first. The initial release date of the film was July 30th, 1986. It has a runtime of 1 hour and 30 minutes. The budget for the film was $9 million USD, where its box office was an $18.6 million USD. It has a rating of PG. It is genre of sci-fi / adventure. And its director was Randall Kleiser, hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly, known for his work of directing Honey, I Blew Up the Kid, Grease, and The Blue Lagoon, to name a couple.
Wow.
Well, I saw a few of those.
A little bit of Honey, I Blew Up the Kid.
I've seen a couple of his other movies and didn't know it.
And with that, I also have a couple fun facts. I got 5 here. Please take them with a grain of salt. They're found on the internet. Who knows how much they are true, how much they are false. Fact number 1 here, director Randall Kleiser brought in his brother Jeff as the visual effects supervisor who oversaw the use of reflection mapping software to create the ship's chrome-like appearance. The result was one of the first successful examples of what would later be known as CGI, a full 5 years before the groundbreaking T-1000 of Terminator 2 Judgment Day.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, that actually makes sense to me. I thought the visual effects of it did remind me of the Terminator, that particular Terminator. So, yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all.
Didn't they use similar techniques for the Abyss as well? I think also came out after this. For the water effects.
More than likely. Yeah, that was after, I think. Look, I didn't have the Abyss in my notes. Fact number 2 here. It was the first film to use reflection mapping to create realistic reflections on a simulated chrome surface.
Is this where GTA Heist name comes from? Our Heist crew name? Springs? Our old one? The Chromatic Crew?
No.
Thought I should ask.
Fact number 3. This was originally an independent film. The main production company, Producers Sales Organization, put up 2/3 of the budget, while the rest came from Viking Film, a Norwegian company. Walt Disney Pictures picked up the rights for this film for North America, becoming the first distribution deal for the studio under new management led by Michael Eisner.
Oh,
This was Michael Eisner's first movie with Disney?
Yes, I believe so.
Wow. I did not know that.
well, distributed at least.
Right.
Yes, distribution deal.
Interesting.
Fact number 4. According to Joey Kramer, the actor who played David, during post-production, the film's editors decided that some scenes needed to be reshot, so Kramer was flown back to the set from his home in British Columbia. Kramer had bleached his hair shortly after principal photography wrapped and had to wear a wig for the reshot scenes. The wig is quite evident during the time travel sequence near the end of the film. However, according to Kramer, few, if any, viewers of the film have ever noticed this disparity without him pointing it out. Disparity. Thank you. After learning this fact and rewatching the movie, I found a scene where it's blatantly obvious he's wearing a wig.
Yeah.
I would agree.
Yeah, I thought something was off. I didn't put it together that it was the wig, though. So.
I didn't pick up on it.
And the last fun fact I have here was Paul Rubin's idea to make the identity of the actor providing the voice of Max a mystery, and he was credited as Paul Mull.
Yep. I knew that.
Because he was a bit of a popular guy during that time and didn't want more...
Associated with a completely different character. Yeah.
Now, I do have some other form of fact. However, I will be saving it as a bonus towards the end of this podcast episode. So if you're interested in what it is, stay tuned.
All right. I'll stay tuned.
Oh, wonderful. I'm glad. Thank you, Crimson.
I hope the caffeine keeps me up long enough for it.
And with that, we'll go into the beginning of the film. Today we're going with a 3-act structure. We'll begin, each act will be about half hour of the film, roughly. And Act 1 will begin from the beginning of the film all the way up to when David gets locked in the NASA bedroom. Now, Hummer, being a guest, you have full reign from anywhere between the beginning of the film to that scene to discuss any point you'd like between that time.
Okay, thank you.
And, of course, for everyone else. So,
or
with
if
that,
you have an overarching topic, you can also bring that up.
Yeah, of course. With that, to help our guest with an example, let's start with Crimson on topic number 1.
Sweet. This will kind of be overarching since I brought it up. Connects with the opening, though. The frisbee competition with the dogs, I thought was going to go somewhere because they brought it up later as well because he wants to train dog. Was it Bradley?
Bruiser?
No.
Bruiser.
Bradley. Bruiser. It was brought up more than just the opening for the obvious saucer reference. So I thought that was somehow going to come into play later. I didn't know to what degree, but it never did come back. So I'm curious what you guys think on that addition. I guess.
Only hint I have of it coming back was actually it showed that. I'm gonna get his name wrong because I always do. The nerdy kid. When he grew up in the older version of him, he already trained. She's the one that trained Bruiser to catch the frisbee. So Jeff.
That would be the younger brother, Jeff.
Yeah. So correct me if I'm wrong, but he also they showed him having trained Bruiser to catch a frisbee. So
yeah,
I assume the point of this opening scene outside of the obvious saucer imagery was to show that in his older brother's absence, he ended up being the one to care for Bruiser, and it kind of shows that he missed his brother despite their misgivings towards each other when they were younger.
So it was a Jeff character thing.
Yeah, that's how I interpreted it. So
I think
Alright.
that's a good interpretation. I'm pretty much in agreement with Ryder there that
I would agree.
the one added scene of Jeff throwing the frisbee to Bruiser, who does catch it, shows that he continued training with David's absence.
As well as becoming a better person and a more tolerable person.
that's true. And Jeff really rubs you the wrong way when you first meet him.
He's the obnoxious little brother. He's supposed to.
That's true. But he's also, it's not really, he's verbally abusing an animal. So he's clear, as I agree, he's just supposed to rub you the wrong way. So.
Yeah.
I guess with that example given, Hummer, why don't you go to the next topic?
I have a couple of issues. There's a scene that's prominently important that happens fairly early on, but then it ends up in the last 20 minutes of the film. So I don't know if you'd like me to reference it here or in the third act. It's in regard to the fireworks.
Oh, okay. I think I know what you're touching on.
I have an issue. I have an issue with the box of fireworks.
Okay. I think.
So it's
you already brought it up.
it's part of 2 acts though. So
Yeah, you're. We can. Yeah, you can bring it up. It's
Oh,
fine.
Springs. All right, there.
It's fine.
is it fine?
I'm not going to say no to a guest. You're
Good
fine.
to go.
I don't want to go. I want to play by the rules here.
Yeah, good to go.
So this box of fireworks become really important. But I have an issue with the fact that things occur later on when David comes out of the ravine and time has happened.
Yeah.
What is it? 8 years? 8 years later, or 10 years? It's 10. Yeah, we go from 78 to 86. So 8 years later, that box of fireworks should have been long gone, and instead it gets moved to the new location and comes out again at the end of the movie. I find that odd. That has always struck me odd every single time I watch the movie. That's just a little internal debate that I have with myself in regard to those fireworks should not exist. And yet 8 years later, they're still there.
Are they the same fireworks? I didn't actually pay that much attention if they were the exact same ones.
So when you go to the end of the movie, and Jeff is doing the signal, it's that box of fireworks.
Okay.
So part of me is there's a moment when I think it's the brother makes a comment to David that his parents, have kept his room. His room hasn't changed. Nothing's changed. So when time lapsed and the family moved on, when they relocated to the new home, they didn't let go of anything. I mean, they packed every memory, everything. That's odd to me.
They did say they were going to set up his room for him, which I guess proves the point. They did take off his stuff with them to the new house as well.
Yeah, even though, he'd already been declared gone, and that's a bit morbid to me. Like, I don't know. Every time I watch the movie, it doesn't set well. I just have this little internal argument with myself about the fireworks.
With fireworks, I thought you were going to bring up how they might be expired by this point, which is
Oh,
certainly
long.
possible. It's getting on
Absolutely,
the cusp.
absolutely.
Yeah, that would
8
be.
years.
And at the end of the movie, Brother Jeff is having a very difficult time sending the signal because most of them won't light. They won't work. They're falling off the roof, and he's having a lot of difficulty sending the signal because these are really old fireworks. I mean, it's just odd to me that they are still there, that they've, moved them to the new house and kept them all these years. And, how many 4th of Julys have, there's been 8 other 4th of Julys and they never set off that particular box of fireworks. They're still there. It's just odd to me.
Even at the end, David comes back home and they're already doing fireworks. So
on the boat,
I don't know if it's the same box. Yeah.
Sparklers on the boat.
It's a different set of fireworks. Yeah.
I would say all uses of fireworks are the same box. Is my
okay. Then that means
I would agree with that.
The time he disappeared, they didn't celebrate 4th of July, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't remember. Did they say?
I think everything stopped.
They do missing persons on 4th of July or on the 5th?
Well, I think
he disappeared July 4th, 1978.
I think without David present, they wouldn't light off fireworks, but they let Jeff use some sparklers, which could be it.
Oh, on the boat, you mean?
Yeah, I think the mom would have stopped them and said, "Let's wait for David to be here to celebrate," and he never arrived. And then they went to go look for him, and things happened. I think the fireworks is just a sentimental value of David that the parents didn't want to get rid of in case whenever he came back. And it's like, those were David's. And it could get to the point of, I mean, it was the 70s to 80s. So, danger was a lot different when David was like, oh, Mom, Jeff was 8 years old, 6 or 8 years old. And it's like, he can go half a mile in the dark. He'll be fine.
That is also in my notes.
And nowadays it's like, that would not fly. So I'm thinking with that
no
time period of the fireworks, eventually at a point they thought the fireworks would be such duds that they weren't dangerous anymore. So it's like, oh, we'll just keep them because they're David, so they're safe to have.
That's just odd. That's just odd.
The charitable reading is that they use that box to store fireworks every year, which is just
okay.
Which is why fireworks just end up there every year. That would be the charitable reading of it. I'm more inclined to think that for some reason they kept the old fireworks because of how we're shown that Jeff struggles to light them near the end of the film. So yeah, I would probably affix the expiration date of the fireworks as to part of the problem, I guess, that you're picking up on here. So.
And Jeff also kept the missing persons poster. I forgot what he said.
Yeah.
His reasoning was, but
I think it's in line with that. Maybe we're just supposed to think that it was too hard to let go of anything. They just kept everything. Maybe that's what it's supposed to mean. I don't know.
I think so. Well, I'm thinking it's also could be Jeff's guilt. Because the first thing Jeff said when he sees David is he apologizes for scaring him.
Yeah.
He's like, he's probably had that over his head for a long time. But the last person David saw was his brother scaring him.
Well, I don't know. David's response to that is anyone could say that or whatever, something along those lines. Which kind of implies to me that Jeff said that as proof that I'm the older brother, not that he was holding that the whole time.
Oh, I saw that line of David saying that. It was trying to find proof that it is Jeff. Anyone could say that.
Yeah, that's what David was thinking. I think that's also what Jeff was trying to do. That's how I read the scene.
I read it a little more of what I just had because he had the poster.
See, I thought it was Jeff's way of, the fact that he's carried 8 years of guilt. So he immediately apologizes. But David, who's not sure that really is his brother, questions it. Which is why he says anybody could say that.
To take the very boring middle road here, I think both interpretations can be true. Because from Jeff's perspective, he would feel, I think, enormous guilt that the last thing he did was scare his brother before he disappeared. and
Yeah.
obviously his younger brother, or now younger brother, older brother. It's getting complicated. Is would be skeptical. So I actually think both interpretations can coexist with regards to this scene.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
All right.
I have a second issue,
Oh, go ahead.
if that's okay.
Yeah.
And maybe this is because we don't live in 1978, but I have an issue with the fact that the mom and dad were going to let the 8-year-old Jeff walk home from his friend's house through the woods in the dark at night. And then mom asks David to go get Jeff from the woods because he supposedly left the house, his friend's house, 5 minutes ago. Will you please go get him? So now the 8-year-old and the 12-year-old are in the woods in the dark at night. And you see David go off to fetch Jeff, but even David is a little leery about walking through the woods. I mean, he hears a tree branch crack and, you see his reaction to that. And then he's like, he hollers out, I've got a gun or whatever it is he says. And because his own fear is, he's apprehensive. He's a little like, okay, I'm walking through the woods alone at night in the dark, looking for my brother.
I'm
Yeah, I
surprised.
think he's partially. I think
That's
he's
what
partially
never
talking
happened.
He's partially talking to Bruiser to calm his nerves.
He
as a
is.
coping
He is.
situation.
Yes. Yes, totally.
As anyone would talk to their dog in such a situation. I am actually surprised. I mean, I'm not surprised that this is the 70s. That's a thing that would happen. What I'm more surprised is they didn't tell him to take a flashlight or anything, because flashlights were pretty common as toys, I think, back then.
Good point.
So I'm like, I was wondering why he was just going into the dark woods by himself with virtually no lights. I'm like, all right, that's what crossed the line a little bit for me, because kids.
And then are you supposed to as a viewer just assume that, oh, well, David's gone through these woods many, many times to retrieve his brother? They probably walk through those woods, 100 times. I mean, so familiar path, familiar,
Yeah, but then his reaction kind of counteracts that a little bit. If it was a common thing, he wouldn't be too worried about it.
Exactly. Why is he so nervous?
Yeah, for the time period, I can believe a parent being like, half mile, that's fine. The whole it being in a forest is where I'm stuck on, because I think that's too much, even if for just a half-mile walk. Because you can get lost in the woods. There was no path there. It's not like it was
Even in the
park.
70s, I wouldn't let an 8-year-old walk half a mile home by themselves. Even in the 70s, at night. Now, during the day, maybe,
Could be
Oh,
dangerous.
and in Florida. Let's get real.
Where's the gators?
I don't know, I just thought,
Legend of the Florida Man is
bad
born.
parenting moment right there.
Yeah, Ryder, I do like your theory of or I guess the idea of David having a flashlight, because that could easily help with him coming out of the ravine, and he's like, "Oh, batteries are dead."
Yeah. It's one of those things that because he goes out there with a backpack, I'm like, okay, cool. He's bringing his usual, whatever it takes when he goes on walks at night. Because if this is a regular thing that happens, I'd assume that he'd have a toy flashlight. And it just never came into play. Though it is a very well lit scene thanks to the moon, which I assume it's supposed to be the moon anyway. But
Yeah, well, better moonlighting than Evil Dead.
That's
Off of 2 scenes.
That's true.
That the entire
touch-
movie of Evil Dead had
Oh, okay,
moonlight issues.
okay. I'm pointing out, the spotlight moonlight.
Yeah.
I'd like to touch on a little comment Ryder made right before recording here, that the music was composed by Alan Silvestri for this film, and this is the work he did directly after Back to the Future.
Yeah,
Oh.
that's cool.
Well, no wonder I like the catchy opening scene music.
We all miss him sometimes.
Ryder, would you like
well,
to
I mean-
share with what you
Yeah,
said
sure.
earlier?
I was surprised to learn that Alan Silvestri did the score because I thought it was pretty generic as a score goes. Not that every artist blows me away with every soundtrack they ever made. I was just surprised that Alan Silvestri. I wouldn't say this is the worst one I've heard from him. It just seemed generic compared to most of the others that have heard of Alan Silvestri. But that's just
I'm
me.
sorry, it's not Portals from Endgame.
Yeah, funny. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I just found this one generic. It didn't affect my objective or anything, but I was just surprised to learn that it was Alan Silvestri.
Well, overall, there isn't really a lot of music in this movie.
Yeah, it's pretty well restrained, I think, as well. But yeah, it definitely blended into the background for me, I think. So
He's really good at those little I don't know what to call them, but the little like like in a horror movie when the violin goes off when like something occurred, like a clue was just found, and there's that little like violin. He does that a lot with like a synth wave in this film. Anytime like there's another question being asked, you hear that little sound.
Up note. Yeah, you hear the up notes coming. Yeah.
And he does it throughout like Back to the Future. Anytime it's like, this can't be where I am, you hear that little noise.
Mm-hmm.
Or in this, right before the jump scare in the woods. A little bit of that.
Yeah. To give the little ambiance of the woods.
But I'll pitch in on the music. I wouldn't say I found it generic, but I didn't find it iconic or notable either. It kind of just blended into the background. There was no like crescendo moment, like, wow, this really is a memorable moment of the song. Just it exists. It does its job.
Not a John Williams E.T.
No.
Yeah, I mean,
none of that.
That's what I meant when I was saying Crimson. Is that when I see generic, I just kind of see it as middle of the road. Like it didn't impress me, or I didn't think it was bad. It just didn't impress me.
Gotcha. A little factoid I have here that I'm sure, hopefully everyone caught. But after they drop off Jeff with his friend and they go back home, the car pulls up in front of the house, and on the radio it's playing "You're the One I Want" from Grease.
I did not catch that.
Nope.
Oh yeah, and then he immediately meets the girl of his dreams, or the girl he's crushing on. So that's kind of fitting.
And I don't think it's a fact like stated in for sure, but the reason why it's 1978 is because that's the year Grease took place, or the year Grease came out. The year Grease came out. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Oh, so I guess that means they really wanted that song in there, I suppose, for the reference.
Playing Grease was released in universe. I think that's what you're going for, Springs.
Yes. Well, the director did both.
So I'm saying in the world of Fly the Navigator, Grease came out just at the time this takes place, approximately.
Oh,
they could have gone to the movies.
I didn't look that up. Oh,
that would be cool.
Because it's on the radio. It's a diegetic. I think that's the term for that. So Grease could have been released within the movie universe, not just our.
Yeah. This is July 4th.
Yeah.
1978. Grease was released June 16th.
There you go.
Well, that's.
I don't know if it hit the radios already, but.
Oh, for Grease? Oh, absolutely. It came out on the radios on June 15th. It's Grease.
I mean, we were getting Sunflower even before Spider-Verse was out, so.
That is true.
Granted, I guess Spider-Verse isn't a musical, so.
Let's see here. What else do I have? I got a little thing of David in his room when he's looking through his telescope, nonchalantly, like every 12-year-old boy does. Over the radio, I heard American Top 40 Extras, which immediately pinched my interest. I'm like, that's Casey Kasem.
Yeah,
I'm sure he's uncredited in this movie.
Probably.
And it might be crazy of me to say, but I think Casey Kasem has a more recognizable voice than Paul Rubens.
Agreed.
Yeah. Could be biased since Springs and I listen to him a lot.
I don't
Hopefully
think
he's
that's
back.
biased. I think that's just true.
Now, Ryder, I got to ask because you didn't comment anywhere there. Do you know who Casey Kasem is?
No.
Okay,
Oh, okay.
Before his time.
it's before his time. Casey, actually,
Or
this won't
okay.
help Ryder at all either. Ryder, Casey Kasem was the original first voice of Shaggy Rogers in Scooby Doo.
Oh, remember, I've seen the original.
Yeah, you've said that. I don't know how much you've seen.
I've seen enough of it to know the voice. That's interesting. Cool.
Casey Kasem was also an iconic DJ for I don't even know how many years on the radio. I mean, anybody that's ever listened to music on the radio, the top 40 or the Casey Kasem was the voice of American top 40. Yeah, for I don't even know how many years. I'd say 30 plus years. I'm guessing at that. Don't quote me at that, but yeah, a long
No,
time.
that sounds about right.
It might be even closer to 40 years.
Now, I got a question for the two first timers here. Actually, Hummer, you can join in if you'd like on this to get your thoughts on it. Do you think the foreshadowing of UFO from the frisbee to the water tower to the blimp, do you think it's too much?
I don't think it's too much, but it definitely tells you what this is about. Like, I didn't watch the trailer. I don't know how much the trailer tips off that this is an alien movie, I guess. So, I don't know how much this was promoted as aliens. But it definitely came across what it was going to become, having not seen it, heard anything about this.
Yeah, my take of it was pretty much flying frisbee, yay, with ominous music, and then we have all the glamour shots of the good doggos catching frisbees. I thought I immediately pretty much understood from the get go. I'm like, okay, this is gonna be a UFO film at some point, and then they do it a lot in the beginning, but then we have a nice break, I think, between the all the quote unquote UFO shots in the beginning, and then to the water tower. I don't think they overdid it. It just kind of helped set the stage of it, and like Crimson, I didn't watch the trailer, so I didn't take much issue with it, to be honest.
Okay, and
In
Hummer,
my
did it ever bother you?
in
or-
my in my opinion, it's a bit much. It's I think we didn't need the water tower. I think the frisbee thing, because I like the frisbee and analogy to the UFO analogy. I like that only because later in the movie when Jeff is an adult, they reference back to the frisbee. So there's a connection there. So I like that.
Yeah.
The blimp, I get where they were going with that. I mean, it's pretty obvious what they're trying to imply. I have a harder time with the blimp scene because they froze everybody.
Yeah.
It was like the blimp comes over, everything goes dark, and everybody's frozen in time. That was a little odd.
No one's seen a blimp
There's
before.
no, there's a
It's
practical
like
use for that.
it's like the blimp is brand new to everyone. It was yeah. And the water tower, I was just like, again, another reference. Okay. I don't think it was needed. I thought that was, it was a little redundant at that point for me.
Yeah,
But
I mean, if I were to pick one to cut, I would have cut the water tower as well, because I think the frisbee one being the strongest character connection one that's later on. I think that one's a keeper for that reason alone.
agreed.
And then I found the blimp one amusing, but that one's middle of the road for me because again I understand the point of what they're trying to do with that. So if I were to pick one to cut, I'm in agreement. I probably would take out the water tower one.
I would have taken the blimp out because I think the water tower helped to the eeriness of the woods with the music that was accompanying it. Meanwhile, the blimp didn't really add anything.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you know
I
what?
think the blimp really gives a UFO vibe to me.
Yeah, it's
Well, I mean, it does that, but it doesn't really affect the characters, or it doesn't do anything to the movie itself that the frisbee and the water tower don't also do.
yeah. Thinking on it now, I'm not in disagreement with that. Because the blimp, it's a very cool visual with the shadow crawling across the ground, covering everything. But in terms of one that would be more useful to the story itself, the water tower one would be a better one because it does add to the eeriness of the that scene because he's out there by himself without a flashlight and just hearing strange noises. So
I feel like I'm put on the spot and I have to make a choice of these three now. Uh,
No, you
shoot.
don't.
Well, I think I'd lean on the water tower because I'm sure there's something else you could use with the music besides a water tower. I like the use of the blimp given an eerie tone shift of transition from a scene to scene.
Was it eerie?
Well, everyone went quiet and a large shadow went over the crowd and everyone's
I
staring
would,
at the
I
blimp
would,
and then it cuts.
I would call it eerie. You have that upbeat, peppy music, dogs jumping, frisbees flying, and then quiet, dark, ominous. Yeah.
I will say
would-
something I did watching this on Disney Plus. I didn't know there was a setting for this. It's for the visually impaired. There's a narrator option uh, for watching stuff. So I accidentally pressed that instead of subtitles, and this whole opening was being described by a narrator, and I was getting very confused. It's like, and a blimp flies over, casting a shadow over the crowd. I'm like, this is an interesting movie.
Oh, weird.
What's the role of this narrator? And I was like 8 minutes into the movie, like, oh, this is not right. This doesn't make sense at all. And I checked, and I'm like, oh, this is for the visually impaired. So I had to rewatch the beginning without the narrator.
Oh, that's weird.
That's
I'm glad you figured that out.
Yeah, it's a cool
I'm
option.
sure your ratings could be a far different if you asked why was there a narrator the whole film.
Yeah,
and now
I wrote narrator in my notes, and if I didn't know about it the whole time, you guys would on what narrator.
We would have been
about.
wondering what movie you watched.
Yeah, and now it's fun to know that I'm not the only one that had screwed up my homework before for the podcast.
Detail I liked about this opening, well, not opening, but the beginning here, is when David leaves. Actually, the first shot used is the introduction of the house of the front entryway inside. And then when David jumps over kind of the concrete wall to the forest, and then everything from falling into the ravine and back, the shots are all lined up from where they were before, and they're not new. And that's a detail I really like to give a familiarity feel across to the audience of the shots aren't different, but the environment is.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, I would agree.
I had a funny reaction to David falling into the ravine. Because when we get the wide shot of him getting back up and the dog stopped barking, and I thought I still am by that it's a small continuity error. Because I immediately figured out that he went forward in time. It was purely by accident because he fell and there was like no green around him when he hit the ground, and then when we get a wide shot of him, we see like a bunch of overgrowth on the plants and all around him. So I'm like, oh, cool, we jumped forward in time. I don't know how much. It was pretty much instantaneous
Oh,
for me.
interesting.
Yeah, it was a happy accident because I don't think they meant me to figure it out there. But
Yeah.
I figured it out in a different way.
oh, what did you figure
I
out?
didn't notice the overgrowth. It's the weird cut that they did. He fell and his face he's knocked out, and then there's a cut of the same shot, but it's at a different angle and a little further back. Like, okay, that's a time jump. So I didn't know how far the time jump was, but
All right.
it came across as a time jump just because of that weird cut they put in there. It cut the sound effects and the music off as well. So
Yeah,
it was
I
just a
know
visual
what
cut.
both are both you're saying. Ryder, for yours with the overgrowth, I didn't know what you meant, so I did go back and while I was watching, I was trying to figure out because you commented in a reaction of like, "Oh, I figured it out at this point," and I hadn't watched the movie yet for my notes and everything, so I just went to that one scene, and I was baffled. I'm like, "How the hell does he know the whole plot of the movie from this?" And then I realized, so beforehand, the ravine's all like foggy and it's darker. So I don't think the greenery changed at all or got more green or growth. It just is the fog's gone when he wakes up, so it looks more vibrant in the green.
Yeah, like I said, I don't know if it's a continuity or I just figured it out on a happy accident. The plot of the film, I assumed because everything's suddenly more vibrant. I'm like, okay, it took a while for those plants to grow, so this is either months or years ahead.
Yeah. And then for Crimson, the cut, I also noticed the cut. It's been there every single time. I don't know why it's there. It's very weird. If I'm thinking of the right one, like right when David's waking up, it kind of like jump cuts a little.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always noticed that, and I don't know why. Well, I noticed why I noticed it. It's very easy to spot. I don't know why
No,
it's left in the film.
it's really easy to spot. I know exactly what scene you're talking about.
Yeah, it just that particular cut seemed unprofessional. I
It's
don't know
like
if
like
it
a
was
little
intentional
glitch.
or what.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
like there's a
it
little
comes off
glitch
as like
there.
a glitch unless
Yeah,
an actual
yeah.
intent.
I catch that every time. Yeah. I also don't like that there's all this background noise. The dog's barking. You can hear, you know, like the
Trains
train
going by.
whistle and you hear all this stuff. And then he wakes up, it's silence. It's like you should at least hear some birds or something. It's silence. And it's like, okay, odd. Yeah.
I mean, it does great. It does a good job of grounding you in that. Okay, something has happened. It doesn't.
Yeah.
You don't know what. You're not supposed to know what's happened unless it's a happy accident, like it's for me and Crimson. But it's it does do a good job of like the lack of those sounds. I thought helped illustrate that something has happened. It is a little odd, but I think it gets that point across.
No, I think it's on
Yeah,
purpose. I
I
think it's
just get to
purposeful
Yeah.
for sure. I think it's meant to be that way so that, we're going, oh, what just happened? Definitely.
Yeah. Now, going after a lot of happy stuff, I'm actually going to point out some errors I found
Okay.
that
I found
aren't
one.
so great about when the cop car is. So, jumping ahead a little here, the cop car of the detective is taking David, quote unquote, home. The
Uh-huh.
cop car rounding a bound has its number of 442, which can clearly be seen when it's taking a curve. When it parks in front of the house, its number has changed, ending with a 5-1. So it is a completely different cop car from those two shots.
Nice.
The second thing I noticed is David comes out of the back of the cop car.
Thank you.
I don't think that's right. I don't
That
think
is
you
so
can open the
wrong.
inside of a back of a cop car.
That is in my notes.
left it unlocked.
How did David get out of the cop car?
Especially when they were planning on leaving him there. Yeah, that's a problem.
You can't open the back doors of cop cars. There are no handles in the back of a cop car on purpose. And I actually, I watched the movie today. Viewing the movie, I rewound that scene to double check myself that it was an actual police car that they were riding in. And it is a police car. So then when David jumps out of the back, I'm like, wrong. Red flag. Nope.
Good catch.
Got any more springs? Because I got one to jump to.
I can jump to one. Another one is when David awakes in the gurney in the hospital. There's a part looking down at David where the doctors are turning him into the room, and it cuts back to his mom. Did I write down what she says? No, but it cuts back to the mom, and the mom talking to David. You can tell by the ceiling tiles above that they're still continuing straight down the hallway and not turning into the room.
Oh,
True.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
okay.
I caught that one.
But in case, writer, sounds like you have another one.
Not an inconsistency, but well, I would call it a character inconsistency. When David goes to his old house and he meets new people, the husband upstairs, Larry, has a pretty much a non-reaction to what's going on. Like some
What's up,
strange.
son?
Actually, he just stays really calm. I think he's just, I mean, as an adult, I mean, even the lady was calm. I mean, David comes crashing into her house,
Well,
and she's like, "Hey," and
Yeah.
that's all she says
yeah, she starts shouting
until
for
he
her.
starts.
Yeah, she starts shouting for her
Larry!
husband's name, and he didn't
And
even react until David burst into his room, and he didn't even
right,
react to David, more or less. He
Larry's
did.
hard of hearing.
Yeah,
He didn't hear
Well,
his wife.
very
I
calm. He
I
was.
think he was playing music in his room.
There is music playing, yes,
yeah. I'm not like I said.
in
I'm
that
not.
scene.
That makes that makes the reaction to some strange kid coming into his house even all the weirder. He should have a more visceral reaction.
Hmm.
I think the fact
I
that
don't
it is
know.
a young kid, I think, does help the fact of his reaction. Like, if it was like a teenager, then I would expect a larger reaction.
It's
But
not a hooded
it
figure with
being
a knife or something. I
a little
mean,
boy.
Okay, I can only speak from a parental view here. I have had this happen to me where my front door of my house opened up and a child walked in.
David Freeman walked into your house?
And he did. No. Um, and I was just referencing the fact that Larry is very calm, and that could be just the parental autopilot on in him, that if he stays calm, the child stays calm until you find out what is going on. It's pretty obvious that David is scared. I think that's the tone of his voice, his body language, the look on his face. And especially when he sits down on the stairs and bursts into tears, it's pretty obvious how scared he is. But when he walks in that room and sees Larry, and Larry's like, "Hi, young man," or whatever it is he says, he stays very calm. And because that very easily could have escalated, and David could have started hyperventilating, he could have started screaming, yelling, really freaking out. But I think the fact that Larry and his wife both were fairly calm in that situation kept David calm. That's just the mother in me. That's my opinion, because that's exactly what happened when that little boy walked in my house, and it was very obvious he had no idea where he was, and I just was very calm with him and walked him back outside. We looked for his family. And it's another 20-minute story after that, but you stay calm with a child that's panicking or a child that's in fear. You calm the child. You start to panic or you escalate, then the other part. I mean, it's the same thing when you're if you're fighting with somebody or arguing with somebody, your voice goes up, their voice goes up. You get mad, they get mad. You get loud, they get louder. I think that's why maybe it was a good thing that they played Larry or had that actor stay calm to try to keep David calm. I don't know.
To
The mom and
compare
me.
with what, to
The
compare
mom
with
and
what
me
you just
says,
said there, Hummer, about the mom and yourself and
yeah.
how Larry reacted, would you then guess that Larry and his wife Janet are parents?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. They're probably grandparents
I also think for the
by,
tone of the movie,
by the
it's
age
nicer.
by the age of them.
Yeah, I think for the tone of the movie, it's nicer that it's Janet and Larry that David ran into, and it's not, a situation from Back to the Future 2 of the family house situation.
Yeah.
To clarify my point on that, I think by the time when David's on the stairs, I actually like everything because at that point they would have ample reason to be calm. But it's because Larry just didn't react to him bursting into the room at all is what bothered me about the scene. I think his reaction is fine.
Okay.
I think the way he goes about it is fine. I think there's need to be more of a reaction because it looked like he was essentially he wasn't listening to his wife. He didn't hear the commotion going on. There was a few factors going into that. So there was no.
Well, the door was closed.
Yeah, the door
So
was
when his
closed.
wife-
Is
When his
yelling.
wife goes, Larry, I mean, if he's in the room, door closed, listening to music, he might not have even. She only says his name once, and
Yeah.
then when David, throws the door open, he turns and immediately stands up out of the chair. So,
Yeah.
but he's very, it's not like he's, who are you? Nothing,
Yeah,
nothing like
I
that.
don't need him to shout. I think I just needed a bit more of a reaction.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think you're right in the sense that by the time David's on the stairwell, there would be neither of them would want to escalate the situation. So they have a reason to be calm as possible about the situation.
Even when he tells his wife to call the police, he's still very
Yeah.
calm.
Mhm. Yeah,
Very
because
very calm voice.
it's the reasonable thing to do. But yeah,
Ryder, if he whipped his head around to look at the door, would that be better than the slow turn? That's kind of where I'm kind of seeing where you're coming from. Is
yeah,
it's not how he acted with the kid; it's how he reacted to someone opening the door.
yeah.
Loudly.
Since David burst into the room, I would have preferred like a whip of the head, and then he can get up calmly because he realized that some random kid is in his house, and obviously this kid doesn't mean him any harm. He does look scared, so I don't take issue with the way he's reacts to David specifically. I took issue with the reaction to, I guess, the entrance into his life.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe
Well,
the
with
actor
that-
playing Larry was really tired that day.
It's possible.
He just took his meds.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm taking
On
my
the top of his
caffeine.
house,
I'm
though.
taking my caffeine meds, and it's not kicking in. That's the problem.
I do like how it wasn't just like furniture changed. The wallpaper's different.
Oh yeah.
It's a pretty much different house.
Yeah, they did a whole refurbishing when they moved in.
Yeah.
Which is why I think it's a stronger detail that the camera didn't move for the shots, or technically lined up the same shots.
Yeah, of him going to the house.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a good
The original
shot.
house, we had him going up the stairs. With
Yeah.
this new house, shot of him going up the stairs in the same way.
Yeah, I think my favorite shot in that whole sequence was where we get a shot over Larry's shoulder and David's like trapped in the center of the stairs between the two of the parents. Not trapped.
Yeah.
But he just kind of sits and cries. Like that to me was a very powerful shot because he feels small and the shot makes him look small.
Yeah. He's absolutely terrified. Yeah.
What do you
And then
guys
he
think
just gets-
about?
Then he just gets sad.
What do you guys think about the, I guess, makeup on the Mr. and Mrs. Freeman to age
That was
them?
horrible. That was terrible. That was
I
the
think
worst
the
makeup
dad
job
was-
ever.
I think the dad was okay, but the mom. I
Oh,
think
so
horrible.
bad. It was so bad.
Yeah, it was pretty comical.
Well, because of how bad it was with the mom, once she came in, like, oh, okay, the dad got divorced. This is the new person. This will create an interesting dynamic. He's like, Mom, I'm like, oh, shoot. Well, that's less
You
interesting.
thought it was a whole new-
not good.
Wow.
Yeah, I did.
Ooh.
I thought they got divorced
Whoa.
because their kid presumably died and it caused problems in the home, and they got divorced. And no, they're still together. They just don't
That would
look
have been
great.
a whole different story.
Does that
That's
make
what I
the
thought was
makeup-
happening.
that bad to you or that good?
I
It
guess
turned him into a different person.
bad?
So I would go for bad. Yeah.
Well, to
So
me,
I
it's
couldn't
like
tell
all
it
that
was the
change was
mom.
their hair.
no,
No,
They added
it's
some-
the
they added
wrinkles,
some
the fake
wrinkles,
wrinkles
for sure.
on her face.
yeah, they
and
they actually had face stuff going on. It wasn't just hair.
it was that makeup on the face was terrible.
Okay. Well, I think the
They did a
makeup for
better they did a
Jeff
better
was
job on the
amazing.
dad. They did a better job on the dad than they did the mom, but
Okay. I was just curious. Crimson, do you have any other point to go to?
Yes. All right. So The doctor guy, scientist,
Faraday.
whatever,
Dr.
Faraday.
Faraday.
Promised 2 days to the father, and the father's like, David says no, I say no. And there's this back and forth, talking to David and stuff, and David's like, yes, I do want answers, I'll go. And then the dad's just okay with it. Like, would the dad be okay with it even if David said yes? I don't think he would. He's been missing for 8 years. It seems weird that he would just be handing off his son to some scientist guy.
Well, he does make one comment about wanting to know where he's been.
Yeah, I see that
No.
more as like a selfish thing for the dad and less what he thinks is best for his son.
Okay.
He prioritized his want of knowing than what would be the best scenario for David, I think.
I don't know. I think being NASA, even though he says like he doesn't care if it's national security situation, I think being such high up to get the answers that he's been looking for, which is really like a tactic on Faraday to draw them in by just giving them all these questions that they want the answers to. I think it's good, especially with the terms they made. Like they can always call, check up on David. It's only going to be 2 days. And the fact that David's okay with it.
I mean, even in
Faye is a
the
creep.
late 70s, well,
I'm sorry.
supposed to be early 80s. Well, true, he doesn't come off great.
No,
Early
he's
80s,
a creep.
people didn't trust the government back then. I mean, people still don't now. Because the post, like the hippie movement and stuff, and we're going in the 80s. That's 84, right?
86.
It's 86.
Okay, a little bit further along. Still, there's this trust in these type of establishments. And I think even a normal person would be like, okay, my son's been gone for 8 years and didn't age. Are they really going to keep him for only 2 days?
Where I come from, where my opinion lies with all of that is, okay, you want to do tests and whatnot on David, then I'm staying with David. You know, if you're going to take David for 48 hours, you're also taking me, or his father, or a parent is going to stay with him. He's a minor. You don't get to just take my son, take the child for 2 full days when we literally have had him back for 5 minutes.
Yeah, I think that would also be better. I just think this scene wasn't great with the dad. Could have certainly been better.
Yeah.
There is no way I would hand over one of my children to a complete stranger. I don't care who you work for. After, I would definitely have questions about his health. Is he okay? He hasn't aged a day. There's something wrong with that. I would have a lot of scientific, questions, like I think blood work needs to be done and maybe some scans need to be run, or something's wrong here.
Yeah,
but I would never leave my child.
Yeah, I assume that was all the basic stuff that they did in the hospital, just verification of identity and everything.
Sure. But in the hospital, his mom stays with him, or his brother stays with him, or they take turns staying with him. But then the 48 hours with Dr. Faraday, they just abandon him. No, that's just wrong.
Yeah. I'm inclined to agree. I don't think his family would have let him go, at least by himself, as well with that. I do have a fun fact about Faraday as a name, because I actually like the name Faraday, because it's actually, the name comes from a
Faraday cage.
Yeah, from a famous scientist named Michael Faraday from the 1700s, who made prominent discoveries of electromagnetism and electrolysis. Like, he pushed that scientific field forward in a very good, very, very, very far. He made important discoveries for it, which is kind of like, I wonder if they're going to play with that at all. And I'm like, oh no, he's just a creep. That's kind of makes me sad.
Yeah, he's just a creep who happens to work for NASA.
Though.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm more of a fan of a different Faraday.
Are we going to Lost? Are we going to Lost?
That's a bit of a... I don't want to spoil anything for Ryder.
Yeah. I've only seen 2 episodes of season 2.
1, and yes.
Something like that.
You got up to season 2, episode 2.
Yeah. I remember going through the bunker. That's, I think, the and where
You barely got started.
No,
Yeah.
no,
You
no,
barely
no.
got started.
I'm somewhere in season 2. I don't remember how far I got into it.
You barely begun.
Yeah, I know. But yeah,
You're not lost yet. You're
He
not
doesn't
lost
know
Daniel
yet.
who
You haven't
Daniel
watched
Faraday
enough.
is. We'll
Daniel
say that.
You haven't
Faraday,
watched
also
enough.
a scientist of sorts, so
yeah.
they're
Oh,
keeping with the
good to
trend.
know. I wonder if he's going to be related to Michael Faraday and all what he does, or is they just felt the name to give them the
Or
name of
Louis
Faraday.
Faraday.
We'll see.
Being that it looks like we're coming up to the end of Act 1, let's go with writer for our last topic.
Well, let's see. So we're going to the point where he gets locked in the room, so he doesn't meet our robot.
Yes.
He doesn't meet
right,
Ralph
right
yet.
before,
Okay.
right before he meets Ralph.
Okay. I guess I have one point. We kind of just hard cut to them. Oh, we tried everything to get into the machine, and then we just see them like about to take a blowtorch to it, pretty much. And I'm like, I think I needed an additional line of dialogue here. Like they just listed off things that they tried, like X-rays, heat scanners, that sort of thing, and then they say they come up with nothing, but they just kind of list off that they did everything, and they're trying to brute force their way in now. Because this is supposed to be NASA, and I know it's for drama, but NASA is a lot more careful than they would not be trying to brute force their way in so quickly. It would be like
Tried hitting it with a stick.
yeah, it would be like days before they even got to that, and that's like round the clock, just trying different things. Obviously, it's for the drama that they've reached a dead end, so that when David has thoughts in his head regarding the ship, he's suddenly very important to them. But because of that connection, I think I wanted to strengthen the fact that NASA hit a dead end. So just them listing off things that they've tried and failed would have been helpful, I think, in that scene.
How much time has passed since David was in the hospital and then leaving the hospital?
2 days, I
don't
think.
think we know.
They say 2 days, right? Like they say, like they're gonna stay in the hospital for a couple days to run extra tests on you.
Yes.
Well, that was the 2 days was the NASA agreement.
No, it's
hospital-
both.
No, it's both.
Yeah,
Like he
you're-
spent
you're
2
both-
days in
They
the
say
hospital. Yeah.
We don't know if it's exactly 2 days in the hospital. I think
A little
the
issue with
comment
that.
is just a couple days. So it could be 3. I mean, we don't know. But then
guess-
again,
Am I the only one that-
if it is 3, that's a whole nother 24 hours to NASA.
Am I the only one that has an issue with the timeline? Because you guys are sitting there talking about how many days or whatever. Like a scene starts and it's broad daylight, and a minute later it's pitch black outside. They cut away, they come back, and it's daylight again. And it's like, okay, did we just pass 24 hours, or was that a glitch that we weren't supposed to catch?
I definitely have that issue as we get later on into the film. I think at least for this first act, I didn't have as much of an issue with that, but I started picking up as we went along. So
I have one in the first act.
oh,
It's when they find the ship in the in the
hitting the
wires
transformer.
in the transformer wires. Okay, it's nighttime. It's dark out. It's night, and then the next thing you see is they're pulling up to the NASA warehouse, and it's broad daylight, and the ship is hovering on the flatbed truck being transported, but it's broad daylight. Yet just a minute ago it was dark at night, pitch black. It's like, okay, so it took them all night to like 12 hours to move that ship from a field to the NASA warehouse. Is that what we're supposed to assume?
Where's NASA housed? Is it
depends what department.
Florida?
There's a
Okay.
there's
They're
a
Florida.
They-
Yes,
they have a
it's
few
in
different-
Florida
yeah they have a
is
few
where this one's taking place.
yeah, they have a few different bases of operations. I don't know if they have a facility in Florida, but for the sake of this film, I assume there is one. They don't really do
That's
anything
nice.
to contradict that.
But it's just it's nighttime, and then
Yeah.
you get a little 30 seconds, of music clip, and you see the ship on the flatbed, hovering there as they're transporting it, and now it's broad daylight. It's like, what?
Yeah.
I'm
I'm
not sure
like-
if this is the right one, but NASA's Kennedy Space Center is located in Florida.
Okay.
Okay.
On an island. I'm looking at it as well. So
Funny.
that would be a visual different depiction than what we get in the movie.
funny.
No, I just have issues with its daytime, nighttime, daytime, nighttime.
Yeah,
it happens.
Hummer, my
It
best
happens.
guess.
It happens
Oh.
again later in the movie.
Yeah, with those two scenes, it is night when they first find the ship, with the security guard, first contact with it. Then David in the hospital, which is still nighttime, to then the ship arriving to the base in the morning, or early afternoon is my guess. So it did take from night to day. I don't know if it was a full 12 hours because I don't think
Okay,
we
so-
know exact the
so
time
you-
they found the ship.
So your opinion is that the director is trying to show you the lapse of time
Yes,
that it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Funny.
but I don't know if it's like 4 a.m. to 8 in the morning and it was only like a 4-hour thing, or if it's 9 at night to 1 in the afternoon.
Right. Okay. So you think it was on purpose, is what you're saying? Okay.
Yes.
We're
There you go,
also
that.
yeah. Funny enough, Hummer, you reminded me of another issue I had, where the government was really lucky that the police officer that found this didn't report it up to anybody else,
Yeah.
and he
Yeah,
just
I thought
straight
that
up
too.
talked himself out of it not being a government project.
Yeah. Yeah, I picked up on that too.
I'll hire anyone to be a guard. Okay. I guess with that, we'll move on to Act 2. I'm sure there's still a couple little
Oh.
tidbits in Act 1 we could have covered, but for the sake of time and on our guest, we will move to Act 2. Going from the NASA bedroom to pretty much the introduction of Ralph, all the way up to David meeting the Puck Marin. And let's go ahead and start with... Did we start with Crimson last time?
We did.
All right. Well, instead we'll start with Ryder.
All right. I actually really like this when he's left into the room and he's locked in. I actually really like that there's a shot of him looking at the mirror. Like, he obviously already knows that it's a two-way mirror. That's there to clue us in that, as he said, he's watched a lot of TV.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, which kind of goes into another fact I found out about. David comments, "Where can you watch Starsky and Hutch?" and that it was
Mhm.
canceled. Randall Cleaver, the director, directed 3 episodes of Starsky and Hutch.
See?
Interesting.
There's little nods to things throughout this show. There's one later on too. Yeah. Little nods to other movies, yeah.
Well, I guess something for me. The Ralph. The second Ralph came in, I'm like, oh well, this is going to be an escape option.
Oh,
I didn't
you
think
too,
he was
huh?
going to hide in Ralph. I thought when Ralph enters the room, because for some reason there's a robot that can just enter rooms, that he was just going to hop over him and go through the door. But I knew immediately that was the escape option, was Ralph.
Yeah, I think they made
Which-
that kind of obvious.
I don't know why NASA would be using that thing.
The
I mean,
robotic assistant labor
what's her
facilitator?
face? What was the girl's name again?
Sarah
Carolyn?
Jessica Parker.
Well, she was accompanying it the whole time, so she could have just given food. They didn't need the giant robot to go into maximum security, as she called the room. So that doesn't make any sense, really. Unless she was joking about it being maximum security, which I don't know.
I think she was joking about it being maximum security. The only reason I say that is just the room is seemingly... It's too well furnished to be maximum security, but I assume that's a joke. Yeah.
And the maximum security is playing cards and not paying attention.
I mean, we can get to those guards if you
R-rated
want to get to
magazine.
those guards.
I mean, they're
They were
babysitting.
They're babysitting.
plot device. No,
They're
they
babysitting
failed.
because, I mean, it's not like he can get out of the room, you know,
Except for
which
the
is why
stupid robot.
which is why he climbs in Ralph.
I think it's
Yeah.
funny that Faraday, his whole thing is like, who did David last talk to? Go find Carolyn. You know, she's hiding information, and they never question, oh, can David fit inside Ralph?
Yeah. Evidently, Faraday doesn't know all the scientific projects going on in his facility.
Faraday's an idiot.
Yeah, they never show him being smart.
The good news is this is hope for me finding a job at NASA, because if Faraday can make it, I can make it.
Hey, there you go. There's hope for all of us.
I guess I have a question, which I think is later answered. But when David is hooked up to the machine and they're asking him questions that are coming up answers on the machine, are those answers on the monitor from David's own conscience
Yes.
answering, or is that a connection of Max speaking like via through David to answer those questions for him?
No, that's
It's
David's
not Max.
subconscious. Max is not connected to David yet. That's David.
Yeah,
David was used to house that information.
it's
He's not a conduit for Max. That's not what that was.
as a first time viewer.
It's in David's brain. It's in David's brain, but David doesn't even know it's there. So, but it's in his mind. That's coming from David's mind.
So the part when he's looking through star charts and then they say he's downloading new star charts, that's a thought because they're unrecognizable, rather than he's not actually downloading. They're actually just present, that they're not a knowledge to what those star charts are.
I think the downloading star charts is bad choice of words. He's not downloading anything. It's his mind. That's my opinion, but it's his mind flashing through star chart after star chart after star chart, getting closer and closer and closer to the planet Phaleon.
That's already in his head.
That's already in his head.
Yeah, it's definitely, if that's what they're trying to convey, I agree. It's a very poor choice of dialogue.
I viewed it as he was downloading the star chart into the computer, not into himself.
Like,
Okay.
oh, that's
Okay.
interesting.
Okay, I'd buy that. It's still a bad choice of words, but that makes more sense because it's already in his mind.
Yeah,
They have a
that's how I was watching it.
They have a throwaway line. I don't remember where it is, but of how like David is communicating directly in binary to the computers and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's when he's in the hospital for his first test.
Yeah, for
That
me,
was what I wanted to talk about next.
yeah, for me that comes from the fact that the reason why I assumed it was Max speaking through David's subconscious is because I assumed that Max would then be the one responsible for that level of biochemistry in order to be capable of, speaking to in binary, pretty much. Because he pretty much
Okay, so
takes
here's-
control of Ralph and to get David to him.
Well, here's a question for you. Max isn't in the room. Max is housed inside a ship in a warehouse that is clear across the lot from where David's being questioned. Max wouldn't hear the question. Like
Well,
when they're saying,
Max-
"What
Well, Max can
where are you
talk.
from?" or "Where have you been?" or
Well, Max can talk to David though, so presumably they can talk to each other. They have a conversation before he even gets into Ralph.
Yeah, and it seems to be stronger the closer he is to the ship, because he
But
was
that's
hearing.
Max talking to David. That's not David talking to Max. That's Max talking to David. Max is sending out a signal that David's brain is picking up.
Oh, okay. So Hummer, what you're saying is every time David responds to Max talking to him, Max cannot hear him.
I don't think Max hears David at all. Max is sending out a signal, and subconsciously, in David's subconscious, he hears him. That's why he's like, when he wakes up, he hears him. When he's laying in, is he laying in the bed? Oh, I might have that scene wrong.
Well, he's sleeping in the hospital and wakes up.
But that's what it
Jeff.
is. Yeah. And no.
On
This is
the
at
car
NASA.
ride to NASA, he also was hearing.
Yeah, through the car window, he's looking out the window, and he can hear it because he's getting closer to the ship. So Max's signal is getting stronger because, well, not stronger, but the closer David gets to the ship, the stronger the signal. So I think Max is constantly sending out a signal for David to hear, And the closer David gets to him, the stronger the signal.
So if Max is not the one speaking on the computers, then, or that's not Max's voice that we hear or see on the computers because that's supposed to be David. Does that mean it's David's subconscious at this point has taken on an entirely different personality because of all the rest of the knowledge, I suppose, that's in there?
I don't think so. I think the scientist is Faraday asked David a question, and David's subconscious, it's in his mind, but David doesn't even know the information's there. It shows up on a computer screen.
The issue with that
just
is
like when he asked David his name, and David hasn't spoken, but David Scott, Freeman comes across the screen, and he's like, "How did I do that?" And he's like, "You did that," and because David thought it subconsciously, but he hadn't even said anything yet.
Yeah, well, sorry, you finish.
Go ahead.
Max didn't even know his
No, go
name.
ahead.
Yeah, well, the issue with that is that if he thought that his name and that's what came up, he also answers yes to some of Faraday's questions, which he wouldn't think that though. The answer yes.
That's the subconscious, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes,
which
Crimson,
is
what you just pointed out is a great explanation that Max doesn't know David's name. So that helps for me to know that everything that the computer's picking up is David only. And I think that's because the star charts aren't the only things that were uploaded into David's head. Much
Agreed.
like when Max takes over or gets the star charts back, he takes David's memories too, which turns
He takes
Max
everything.
but that turns Max into a completely different personality.
Right.
Almost a whole being. I think the same is about David's subconscious.
Yeah,
it's its own being.
So yeah, it got injected with a different personality. That's kind of where
Because
I
it even scares
information.
It even scares David. He's like, "Who's doing that? What's happening?" And they're like, "You are," and that's just freaks him out. He's unaware. That's his subconscious.
Yeah. No, I might be using the wrong word, but the reason I'm saying I'm treating the subconscious as an entirely different character just by the way it acts independently of David in this scene.
Okay.
I think what they're trying to depict here is the brain is the computer, and what the question is accessing a file. It's less what he's thinking, but just that information's in the brain, so it's getting relayed. I think that's that bare bones for it.
Okay.
Which you could argue, what the heck is this technology? Why do they have it? But we'll just assume NASA has this technology.
Okay.
The answer on how far Phaleon is insane.
Yeah, 500 plus light years in 2.5 seconds. It's crazy.
Well, it's at a 2.2 solar years, which would be, wouldn't that be 2 days? Yeah.
They even say 4.4 hours equals 8 years of our timeline.
Yeah, so I didn't think that the math actually added up here for their explanations.
Well, I don't think we're supposed. I don't think we're supposed to dissect it, and they don't expect us to dissect it.
I think they would have gotten some scientists to consult for the numbers, though.
Nah.
560 light years.
They didn't have the budget for that.
2.2 solar years.
They didn't have the budget for it.
They'd be over 2 million years fast. Yeah, 2 million light years. Oh, can we scrap that? That was just
Did
terrible.
you write down your math?
I did. I'm just looking in my book where I put it. 2.25 million times faster than the speed of light. 2 million times.
And you're saying that's possible?
That is an insane number for anything in the universe. 2 million times faster than the speed of light.
I think that was the point.
Yeah,
the possibility of the human mind which you carry, yes. To a Phaleon, maybe not so.
It kind of ties into what I said. I think whatever species or whatever alien race that Max comes from, I think they're a Type 2 civilization or more advanced. Type 2 base, pretty much.
Okay, you just said Max comes from a civilization. Do you see Max as a living thing, or is he a computer?
I say whatever he is, he's from a Type 2 civilization. I don't know. I don't know the basis of Max is an individual life form or whether he's a. He describes himself as a independent drone. I think at one point, working on collecting samples on behalf of
Surveying
and
galaxies.
on behalf
Yeah.
of his species or whatever race he's programmed to work for.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, as
I
Crimson,
see him as a machine, a droid, and I see him more like that, not a living thing.
yeah. I mean, for all we know,
More as a machine.
Yeah, for all we know, the living mission people that he is a part of figured out how to download their consciousness into machines. It's one of those things where
Right.
I just decided to, because of how advanced their technology is, and they're able to do faster than light travel to such a insane degree. I consider I just would say he's probably from a Type 2 civilization or more, which means essentially that they've mastered all the ability to harness all the energy in their solar system and stuff like that.
Yeah, I would agree with you.
That-
I mean, he's
That number's so astronomical that I wish this spaceship just teleported. I wish it didn't fly. I'm serious. That number is insane. 2 million
Hey,
times
it's
faster
okay.
than the speed of light.
It
Okay.
teleports. It just vanishes when it exits Earth's atmosphere in the end, or towards the end,
Yeah, I mean, it's gone.
and then it's going through, the light speed travel of red, upside down lightning clouds.
It travels the same way ET vanishes at the end of ET. I mean, it's just gone.
Well, Hummer, this one didn't leave a rainbow.
No rainbow involved.
Slight difference.
Just some puffy white clouds and cool little musical beat.
Yeah. With regards to the conversation about how fast they travel, this was actually some of my reactions in the Discord chat. One of the scientists said, "Oh, it has to be light speed theory." I paused the movie and threw something at the wall because obviously that's way faster than light, and we've known how fast light travels for long before this movie was made, and then they proceeded to correct themselves like 5 seconds later when the sun got to relax immediately afterward. I thought they were going to talk themselves into scientific jargon corner, and they didn't. I'm very happy they didn't.
I still think it would be more than 8 years.
Absolutely.
It would be hundreds of years with the speed they traveled.
Man, I should have done my
But
math
I don't
for
know the
this.
math.
I think it's funny that they can get to the near instant of light speed travel of how fast they go, because Max says, "I will bring you back at the exact moment I left you." Situation of like, that's fine for a human body to process, but going back in time is too dangerous.
A near instant of light.
Well, we're
Is
not
that what you
supposed to
just
think about it that way.
Yeah, because then when
He
David
actually
brought it
doesn't-
up to Max, he says, "Oh, I put them back the same time I took them."
But he actually doesn't bring David back the exact moment.
No, it's a
Because-
little off.
It's a little off because his parents are already on the boat. So, and when he left, he was
Well,
just getting Jeff.
okay,
So-
that's a little. I find
sorry.
it believable that his parents are on the boat. The thing that gets me a little is the trains passing by, where right before he falls, you hear the horn.
Yeah, but a train
it's
can go
been
by
a-
every 5 minutes. We live next to light rail. We all know
Train,
that.
you're saying.
Could be a completely different train.
The main thing here is the dog is no longer there. That's what I took, that obviously time has passed.
That's true.
Because the dog was barking when he fell in, and the dog is just gone when he wakes up. That's why I assumed he wasn't back at the exact moment. He was just closer.
Okay, I guess that explains
the
the
dog.
mom too, asking like, "Where have you been?"
Yeah, the whole family is on the boat, and they've already lit fireworks, and they're ready to go, and they're and she's like, "Where have you been?" Yeah. So he doesn't get returned the exact moment.
No, I agree with that. I'm just trying to think.
And Max-
as soon
and
as
Max
David
does-
left,
We're jumping ahead, but Max actually does warn him.
yeah, of
He
the
does
dangers.
of the dangers. He does warn him. He says, "I can try. I'm willing to try, but
Just trying to think. As soon as David left to go get Jeff, parents could have come out then, got on the boat, Jeff ran home after scaring David, and could have done the same thing David did as soon as he got to the front door, turned his head, seen the boat, went to the boat.
Well, the mom even says, she says, we're gonna grab the dogs and we're gonna have a barbecue, whatever. Will you go get Jeff? He's just left the such and such house 5 minutes ago. So I mean, she kind of rattles off what she's about to do. They're gonna have a big barbecue and get on the boat and light fireworks. So she's already said that, and then David takes off to go get Jeff.
Okay, that kind of falls onto another thing I was slightly confused on about the movie. Is she says that at the end that they're gonna like cook burgers, but when they get home, she says don't fill up because David gets food, and she goes don't fill up or we're gonna get something to go or like order.
We're gonna order dinner. Yeah.
Yeah.
But she's already told him that they're gonna barbecue. So yeah, I caught that
But
too.
is the barbecue before or after?
Well, I think that's a glitch.
Oh, okay, that's a goof.
At the continuity.
That's a goof. Yeah.
Well, unless they're having barbecue and they just wanted McDonald's with their barbecue. So.
Oh, well, then that explains it.
Yeah.
There you go.
They're gonna open up the Big Mac and take the patties out on the barbecue.
Took them a little more.
Yeah.
Heat them up.
I'll point out.
Go ahead.
Maybe. Okay. So when they go 20 miles up into the sky,
Straight up.
straight up, it should be 60 miles, not 20, with how high they went. So where they leave the atmosphere and he floats. So they got that wrong.
Crimson, that's correct. That is an error.
Yep. I wrote that one down too.
What I find is a little, I guess kind of in the range of a little error is when they're going straight up and David says stop to Max stopping the ship to what he said. Did he stop exactly at the point of the thought of 20 miles on the nose? Because then the scientist tells Faraday they went 20 miles straight up.
I guess that's what we have to believe.
Yeah.
So David timed it
that's what's
exactly at the
depicted.
spot.
That's what depicted, so we got to believe it. And another issue I had with this scene of him going up is he's getting pushed down into the chair. His body's actually reacting to the speed of the ship.
Yeah.
So when he's flying super fast across the states or just fast enough to go through time, he should be paced or vaporized, as they say.
I really
in my notes I said David is paced.
I desperately needed
I kept waiting for him to pass out.
Yeah, I desperately needed a line of dialogue from Max saying how he's compensating for, the shift in gravity, the shift in speed, all of it.
No,
I kept waiting for David to pass out.
David actually reacts to the speed of the ship is problem. I wish they didn't show that part. They don't show it really anywhere else, I think, during the travels.
Something else that's it's never said, but you kind of have to guess, is David's totally fine in the ship, which means there's oxygen for him to breathe. Mm-hmm. But then when he's introduced to all the other creatures, that Max is like,
lucky they all breathe oxygen.
They all breathe oxygen.
Not just oxygen. Have a problem Earth's with oxygen. Ratio of oxygen.
Well, one of them might not. He's behind a glass wall, so
that one still makes noise. So it has some kind of vocal pipes of some sort. The one that's sick could have sickness because of the oxygen in some form.
No, he has a cold. He just has a cold.
He just has a cold, but is the oxygen helping the cold?
Who knows?
We get no lines on that, but we do get told he has a cold, so we'll believe that. I mean, the frog thing's in a little glass dome, so he has his own breathing.
I actually have
there's some in tubes that are closed. So they're not all exposed to the air.
Yes, the one in the glass tube. The second one talked about the Fenestress from Pixar Elliptic.
Yeah,
Pixar caught my attention.
Of course it did.
So I looked up. Pixar started in 1979 as part of Lucasfilm Computer Division, so before the time of the film. However, February 3rd, 1986, which is just a couple months before the release of this film, is when it was founded, which is 5 months before July. But
that's cool.
from the shooting script, that's the one piece of information I could not find. From the shooting script of when this film was done and how long production was of this film to be filmed. Because if that information could be found, Pixar could have been in the shooting script before Pixar, the company, was founded.
Mm.
It'd be one of those Easter eggs, like, Destiny, like the Destiny poster in Halo 3.
Something like that. I'm just saying, like, these two were not connected at all because Disney didn't acquire Pixar to 2006.
It could just be a coincidence.
That's what I'm leaning towards, hearing all this information.
And they don't say Pixar. It's actually a 2-syllable thing. It's Pixar something.
No, yeah, it's Pixar elliptic.
Yeah.
Something like that.
So
the two words.
It could just be a coincidence, honestly. Or maybe not.
Maybe not. One that I don't think is a coincidence, sorry to cut you off there, Ryder, is when David first gets into the ship and is showing like a bunch of shots of the chrome, and there's a part where David's walking across the ground, or showing his like feet walking across the ground. Engraved in the ground is a flux capacitor.
Oh.
And the timestamp for that is 4548.
Is it actually, or just something that resembles it?
No, it resembles a flux capacitor in the ground.
Okay, I'll be watching that scene again.
I believe was, like, I guess greenlight's the term. Like, yes, it is to be a flux capacitor design.
Is this something you found or an observation you had?
This is a fact.
Okay.
Going through the facts I found.
I'm going to rewatch that. See if I can find it.
Yes, it's not an actually functioning DeLorean flux capacitor in Max.
It's an image of it. It's an image of it.
Yeah, it's one of the designs
on the floor,
in the chrome floor. Yeah,
on the chrome floor. Okay, I know the scene because the camera pans right to David's foot. You know,
I was paying attention the whole time on the inside to see if you could see any crew or gear in the reflections.
Oh, you were looking for the boom mics?
Well, just anything in the reflections that wouldn't fit, and I didn't see anything. Helps that a lot of the designs are intricate, which kind of messes with the reflections.
Hummer, did you have a point you'd like to jump to about Act
2? I did appreciate the shape shifting. That was just a nice little added touch. I enjoyed that. The fact that when Max, or the ship, is just like hovering or just there, he's one shape. And then when he goes for speed, he shapeshifts.
Turns more aerodynamic.
Yes, I thought that I just think that's a cool little, visual
detail
for the observer, for us to watch. I mean, I enjoy that. I like it.
I like the use of the dolly zoom on David inside to demonstrate a change in depth without actually doing anything to move the interior of the ship, to give the feel that the ship is changing when it's not.
I just thought it was
ship's
cool.
made out of oobleck.
That's what it was. Oh, okay.
That's why it was impenetrable, because the more force you put on it, the stronger it is.
Crimson could be. Oobleck could come from Phaleon.
Yeah. Funny enough, I had a joke about that because all the NASA people, when they came in, were aiming guns at the ship. I just thought it was funny to think that their bullets would do anything to a Type 2 civilization or more.
Or
the ship is impenetrable.
Well, no, they tested everything. Remember, that was a line of dialogue they said.
They nuked it, and that didn't even work.
I do have a question.
Yep.
If that's okay. So when David steps in to the hangar, I realize I'm backtracking, but when David steps into the hangar, are we just supposed to assume that Max, Computer Max, Alien Max, AI Max, whatever the heck he is, that he senses David's presence, and that's why the stairs just automatically appear? So that David can enter the ship?
I think so.
Presumably so. In the same way that none of the guards take notice either, because Max has direct control over binary things. Just presumably what he did to David, I assume Max would have something similar in capability.
Okay. I meant to ask that earlier, but yeah.
What I
Okay.
don't care for is such a highly maximum security thing on an alien spacecraft, more so than David and those two security guards on him babysitting. But on the spacecraft, David just walks on through and nothing's locked, and he can go right
Yeah.
on in.
Darn it,
Yeah.
Sprinks.
It's the one. There's one outside hangar garage door for Ralph. That's it.
Sprinks, I was going to bring up how much you love Tyrell Corporation security. This is far worse.
I don't know about that.
No,
it
this is far
worse.
worse.
The babysitters don't watch him. There's a dog that is alerted, and the guy's like, guess you're hungry. Guess we'll just move on.
Because Ralph's used for food.
There is absolutely, there's no scientists, there's no security guards near the ship.
Yeah.
This place is way worse than Tyrell.
Yeah, this is because this is such one of the greatest discovery in mankind's history up to this point. There would absolutely be scientists working around the clock. This is way worse than Tyrell.
Okay.
I mean, even in Tyrell, there was an employee in there. It
That's
wasn't
true.
somebody
Okay.
else.
I will, though, not to counter, but something I do like is that when they realize David's in the ship, they actually have protocol to go with. And that's not usually shown in a film.
Yeah, there is a nice nugget
Usually just
that.
panic.
Yeah, I can agree with that. They use the lightsaber found effect when the ship tries to leaves the hangar and opens the door with like electricity. That was a lightsaber found effect.
Yes, that was very 80s blue electricity.
I thought it was about to shock Luke to death on the Death Star. It was.
Yeah, they had the cool protocols, and then Super Genius Faraday later is like, make sure the ship doesn't leave when there's helicopters flying above it. What are they supposed to?
What are they gonna do?
Land on it.
that was funny.
Make sure they stay on the ground. Sir, how are we supposed to crash? Do something. I don't know what they wanted.
I guess I know Faraday's a pretty dumb
He's an idiot.
person. Okay, a pretty idiotic guy.
I think we have proven a fact that he's an idiot.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Presumably
I guess one
he's
little
not a
nugget
scientist.
to his intelligence. No, one little nugget to his intelligence is when they're like really rushing to get to David on the ship, and he asks the guy, "Is there radiation beyond this point?" And the scientist says, "No, it's cool in there." And he goes, "Okay, open the goddamn doors." It's like at least he checked for that rather than just trying to break the doors open.
Yeah.
I can acknowledge that. Yeah.
Okay.
Whether on the safety of himself or his.
I think that was just a selfish moment. He just wanted to know he wasn't going to melt.
Is my brain turning to jelly, or is it already like this?
Exactly.
We got some unfortunate news for you, Faraday. Pretty sure your brain's already jelly. Here's an issue. There was no wind. There was little to no wind shear when the ship was moving at high speeds.
Magic ship. You mean when the ship flies over trees, the trees don't get ripped out of the ground and follow it?
Yeah, or
From NASA, it blows the roof off of a shed, but when it goes by cows, they're fine.
Yeah, when it blows the roof off a shed, it also doesn't cause any wind shear to the scientists when it just shoots up through the atmosphere really quickly, and when it comes back down at the same speed, it causes nothing with terms of the atmosphere.
Would crack the asphalt, maybe.
Oh yeah, it would have cracked the asphalt. Some people would not be able to hear for the rest of their lives.
I mean, at the speed they were going, they would have been liquefied just from the force of them coming down. And I guess potentially take off, but definitely on
the coming down.
Going down, yeah. Since we don't really know how the propulsion is, the liftoff might not, but definitely coming down.
A little thing I have here in my notes is when David goes into the water of the ocean and he's complaining to Max, the voiceover of David complaining has no bodily emotion at all in the shot until it cuts to like the side of David being all distressed.
ADR. That is absolutely an ADR.
There's a lot of that in here.
Yeah.
What the girl? I cannot find her name in my
Carolyn?
notes.
Carolyn?
Yeah, Carolyn.
Carolyn.
Want to bring it up because we bring it up several times in this pod. Is she removable?
Unfortunately,
Good
yes.
question.
She didn't
I
do
think
anything.
she probably is. She probably
Yeah.
is.
I don't know why she's in the movie.
I like her character and
I like her
concept.
character.
Yeah, I like her
She's
character
fun.
and concept. It's
I
just
like
they
her.
don't do enough to justify her presence in the script.
They make it's a human connection for David when he's locked in that room.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I mean, literally, he's been handed a remote control and told that's how to operate the TV, and then he's abandoned again. And there he
Ralph could
sits.
have operated on his own.
I mean, Ralph does. He
Ralph could have
comes,
talked.
Ralph shows up at exactly the moment David wants to leave that room and go find Max. Ralph
Without
automatically
her.
he's just there, and Carolyn is nowhere to be found.
It's true. I
So
think the most important-
Ralph can be operated alone.
Something useful of Carolyn is to inform the Freemans about what's happening with David. Otherwise, they would be in the dark.
I mean, the scientists would have
NASA
showed up
would
to
have
arrest
showed
them
up.
anyway, so
Yeah.
they would have been able to
That's
put two
true.
and two
But-
together.
But they were in the dark regardless of if Carolyn showed up at their house or not.
That's true.
I mean, she is removable.
Yeah, if she didn't
Personally-
show up. The scientists come up and they still don't know what's going on. Once he calls them from the gas station, he can inform them what's happening. So it doesn't
That's true.
change anything.
Personally, I think the one thing to me that Carolyn brings the most to this film is the line she says of, well, now that all depends, do you want new Coke, classic Coke, cherry Coke, Diet Coke, or caffeine-free Coke?
Exactly. The 5 Coke choices.
Which is a great line.
It's a great joke. Still not enough to justify her place, though. Unfortunately,
No, it's not. I'm in agreement. I think Violet from It's a Wonderful Life has more presence in a film than Carolyn.
Yeah, I agree.
That's true. You won't hear me disagree with that. Which, like I said, which is a shame because I'm kind of in agreement with Crimson. I actually like her character. I just want to justify her place in the script in the script a bit more, for sure.
I thought they were going to
I
do.
mean, why did they
stupid-
make her? Why didn't they
Sorry,
make
go
her like Jeff's girlfriend or something? You know, I mean, just they just could have given her a better storyline.
I
and
thought
made
they were
her
gonna
more
do a
relevant.
stupid convenience thing where she was Jennifer grown up, but she changed her name.
Oh,
But that didn't happen because that would have tied her to something. But
That would have
they
been
didn't do
cool
that.
if they had made
It would-
her Jennifer instead of Carolyn.
that would have
great.
made that scene earlier in the film with her spying
that
on
would have made
Jennifer.
the cute
That would
line
have been great.
make sense.
Yeah.
Just the whole her calling him cute was out of the blue and weird. But if she was Jennifer and she recognized him from her childhood or something, that would actually make some level of sense.
And
Would
that would
be-
have been a neat tie-in too, because we never hear about Jennifer again ever.
That's true.
Yeah.
She's just a crush, and then she's gone.
Yeah, that feels like a knack at the film. If Carolyn can be removable, but there's Jennifer, who's a character as well, who has less screen time, it could be more removable.
Oh yeah, I think that was just showing David that yes, he had a crush on something that his brother was teasing him about.
I mean,
that
Jennifer
was-
wasn't even a character really, but
Not
they
really.
could have made her Carolyn to be a character that actually made sense to implement.
Yeah, I didn't think about that, but I would have enjoyed that.
Crimson, that would have been a little much. Right, I don't know if you've seen
It'd be
it
convenient.
or Hummer too, but Crimson could have been down the line of like Meet the Robinsons with the wife,
Oh, yeah, that would have been interesting.
like not knowing her when she's young, seeing her in the future, and then knowing her when he goes back.
Yeah, that would have been interesting.
I don't know the movie, so I can't.
Yeah, It's
Right.
been a while since I've seen Meet the Robinsons, but I know what you're talking about, Springs. I think that would
Yeah,
been
of
that would have been a good
Franny.
way to approach it.
Poor
Let
Carolyn
us-
wasted potential.
Yeah, let's go with 2 more points. Let's go with Crimson, if you have one more for this act.
All right. How about how inconsistent they are with Max's knowledge? He speaks thousands of languages, yet he doesn't know words.
Yeah, that was my issue as well.
There's several words like what is laughing? What is restroom? I mean, that would be part of his language bank. And in order to know language, to communicate language, you have to kind of know what the words mean.
Well, Crimson, didn't they
So
say he's not fluke? What's the word I'm looking for? Fluent. Fluent in these languages? Like, if he knows 5 words in every language, does that, he knows thousands of languages?
Max says it speaks thousands of languages. So I would assume he means a degree of fluency.
Yeah, it's a pretty safe assumption that he doesn't know 1 word in 1,000 languages. That's just stupid. So they were very inconsistent with his knowledge. Later, he brings up hippos. I'm like, well, that doesn't make sense. How does he know what that is? But then at that point, he has David's thoughts. But it also brings up an issue when he's like, what's music? When he does have David's mind at that point. So David knows what music is.
That's true.
So they're just so inconsistent with his knowledge.
Yeah. I think
He's a super intelligence that doesn't know anything.
Yeah, I think a better angle to have, one of the corrections I would have made or suggest to be done would have been that Max gets languages, but he still needs help with understanding concepts. So the idea of laughter and being tied to happiness, that's a concept that he might struggle to understand. Like that would make sense, and that needed to be explained then. But it doesn't, because that doesn't necessarily tie into the definitions of the words that he's using. He would know what it is. He just didn't know the more emotional connection between the two. So
sure, and that one connecting those, but like bathroom and music, he would know.
Yeah, like those exactly. Those are
the emotion behind music.
Yeah, those
he would know what music is.
Yeah, those aren't inherently concepts. Like he would understand them. He would understand them like the definition of what they are, but he wouldn't, comprehend the full concept of them. I hope I'm saying this right.
I think I get what you're putting down. Yeah. Okay. And then I guess lastly for this act, Hammer, do you have one last point?
I did.
No.
Sorry. Not necessarily a point. I did like the little when they arrive at Alligator City gas station, and the Max opens and the steps are released, and the last step sets off the gas bell. I thought that was kind of clever. Like when a car drives over the bell, so somebody wants to fill up their tank. Max's step lands on the bell, and the bell goes off like ding. Okay, there's somebody here to get gas. And David asks if Al has any change so he can make a call, and he calls. The family arrives. They take the pictures. The yada yada. Okay, all that happens, and then the family leaves, or they're all. David gets back on the ship, and the ship leaves, and Al says the line, "He just wanted to call home." And I was like, cute. Hello, E.T. Nice little E.T. reference there. Yeah. I thought that was,
There's one other E.T. little reference. Sorry, Crimson. There's one other little E.T. reference in the NASA bedroom. There was a speak and spell present.
Oh.
And some Transformers.
Oh, that's great. I saw some toys and stuff, but I didn't see the speak and spell.
Crimson, you were saying.
Yeah, it's sad that Al is more necessary than Caroline in this movie.
A bit,
Ouch.
Yeah.
He provides money for which he can contact.
Wow.
That's plot driven.
Oh,
He's
man.
actually necessary.
Shots have been fired, and they landed.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. And it also facilitates, I think, one of the funniest jokes in the whole film.
Yeah, Al's funny.
Yeah. That joke made me laugh quite a bit, and then also Max's interaction with David when he was flying 20 miles straight up into the air. I really liked that interaction.
Yeah. I agree.
Well, yeah. With that, I guess we'll go on to going towards the end of the film with the last half hour of Act 3. Going from the Puck Marin to the end. Being that, I'll go with something. I'll start this off. Let's see. What do I have here? This movie has a lot of little references, as we just touched on. E.T. I'm really blanking now, which is embarrassing. We're just saying that.
Grease, Back to the Future.
First
Back to the Future.
Contact.
That's what I was looking for.
Yeah,
Yes.
there's several.
Yeah. There's the Star Trek one of
Star Trek.
Max after scanning David's brain says, "Scotty to the bridge. She can't take any more of this, Captain."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was
Mhm.
another good one. Yeah.
Hey,
Yep.
you say that with the accent. Come on.
I'm gonna pull a Sinister and say, not this time. Um,
I'm giving the role she's
What-
got, Captain.
Thank you.
You're
Thanks,
welcome.
I can't do Scottish. I'm sorry. What I like is Max conveys to David, "I know what you know, and you don't know your left from right." And then he says, "Go right," which is just as equal to David saying, "Go left."
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Just because of the brain scan on David, the
Yeah.
old Max no longer exists.
Which is
It's completely
probably my least favorite
rewired.
part of the movie.
You think Max is completely changed because now he has David's references
Because
too?
Oh, absolutely.
Yes, the
He's a
old
different
Max-
character.
yeah, after
Yeah.
the brain scan, they're two different beings.
Okay. Well, he learns humor and what a joke is, and I mean, he takes on a completely different
Well,
personality.
The first Max knows about traveling miles and going where David's asking, like, go somewhere where they won't find us, goes in the ocean, can like do all these things, and then scans David's head, and Max doesn't know his left from his right now.
Becomes an idiot. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. He doesn't retain his past knowledge.
Well, now he's 8. You know,
Or
he's
maybe
8
a
years
bit.
old now,
Yeah,
or
he
12.
didn't, like,
No,
forget
he'd be
about
12.
Phaleon or anything, but
Yeah, he's 12 now.
I loved Max Prime, and once he died, I was sad. I was honestly sad.
Oh.
He was great. His back and forth during the whole cow stuff with David was awesome. I need the superior information in your inferior brain to fly this thing. Great.
correction, I
Alright.
need the superior information in your inferior brain to fly this thing.
What did I say?
I thought you said the first part. What David said.
Yeah, it's a quote.
No.
Yeah.
You just
a
quoted at each
conversation between
other.
the
Yeah.
You quoted each other. Yeah, which is what David and Max do. Yeah.
But yeah, Max Prime died.
Yeah, I'm also kind of in the same category.
Trimaxium.
I really liked Max before the change. After the change, it started falling off a bit for me, the movie.
Oh.
Went too goofy
Yeah.
Okay.
for me.
I don't
The
know.
kid,
I preferred the straight humor
lackluster
bouncing off
kid
of the
and-
kid. Yeah.
Okay, and the serious alien
That-
versus these two 12-year-old brained immaturity
yeah,
situation.
flying a Type 2 civilization ship. It's
Well, it turned Max into Kid Jeff. So, yeah. And didn't like Kid Jeff.
Okay. Well, with that, let's go to Crimson. Anything else of this final act? Whether liked or didn't like.
Anything else? I can bring anything else up. Probably. Let's see. I wasn't looking at my notes. Pick someone else.
Okay, cool. Writer.
Let's see. I find it funny that they call the 80s punk kids geeks. I don't really. It's not an insult that I would normally attribute to 80s punk kids. So it was just funny for me that I guess that David and it was explaining to Max that they're geeks.
Well, I think coming from a 12-year-old.
And maybe, like I said, I don't have any issue with the characters in this scene. It was just kind of amusing to me. But that's what he thought they were.
I think he just equated that to like losers.
Yeah, maybe. And
Like
here's
no.
me, a geeky writer, wearing like a badge of honor.
Wow. What I do know, a little fact: the song playing in the car is a parody off of a different song, and the parodied version in this film does not have a full version made. or never had a full version made.
That's just that snippet.
Which is odd because they have other licensed music in this, especially like the Beach Boys, following right
Yeah.
after.
Yeah.
So maybe they only had the funds to afford one song, maybe.
Well, you said they
no,
only
well-
had $9 million.
Yeah, yes.
That's not
Where
much.
that money went, that's true. I know Crimson usually does all the calculation of like inflation to funds. So at the time, I don't know how $9 million was really spread amongst a lot of things.
$9 million for a sci-fi movie. Yeah, $9 million isn't going to go very far.
Especially with the new technology for CG that they utilized.
Yeah.
You think
Probably
about
is
how
a
small the
decent-
cast was. I mean, you talk about actual cast players here. There's very few cast members that have speaking roles in this movie. You have a really small cast.
Al has one line.
There you go.
But
Yeah.
he did all the
He
acting.
wanted to phone home. That's all he says.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's all he says.
He was a great actor, though, Al. he really.
It's about 30 million for inflation.
Okay. Thank you, Crimson. I think the Beach Boys scene is my favorite scene in the movie.
It's got to be one of my absolute favorite scenes.
It's just so fun.
Beach Boy.
Yeah.
Oh, and the
Yeah, when,
They're dancing.
when he's-
the head
when
bob.
he's learning- when
Oh,
he
when he's
does
learning
not want to
music,
listen
yeah.
to the bossa nova.
I get
Yeah.
When
around.
Max finds
yeah.
Max
Okay.
finds the bossa nova, and he's like, "Oh, turn it off."
That's not music.
That's not music.
All right, I did find something to bring up. Except it's technically in the previous act, but I'll bring it up anyways. Puck Marin was still around because he said his planet was destroyed by a comet. How the heck is that relevant if he could just go back in time and put him back?
That implies. Actually, here's an interesting question. That kind of implies that that Max is not an autonomous drone. He made a conscious decision to save the life form.
So he has feelings.
Yeah. Well, he had feelings even before he.
Well, did he
saved-
decide not to put it back?
Yeah, Max
Yeah,
explicitly says that.
He said the planet was destroyed by a comet.
Well,
which is why
yes,
he's
he
Yeah, but
knows,
if-
here.
he knows that at the point now because he still has the bean. If he put it back, I mean,
He
that's
could
just
go
something
back in
he knows
time.
the future. Yeah,
Yeah.
but to put the Puck Marin back, that's kind of like the No Way Home situation. You know, just like all these villains coming in, putting them back to the time of when they left.
He said he couldn't put him back because his planet was destroyed by a comet.
Right. So if he
He said
goes
he
back
couldn't
in
put him back.
time, but if he goes back in time and did put him back, his planet's going to be hit by a
Yeah.
comet regardless.
Yeah.
So,
It'd be
But he-
interesting.
so he's
Yeah, it'd be interesting to assume if that was a conscious choice by Max's part to not do that in order to save the Puck Marin.
Yeah, and that would be Max Prime's choice.
Yeah.
right. Which,
And,
which is what I
obviously-
said. So Max had feelings
Obviously,
and
the
emotions.
Puck Marin can survive the time travel because he did. And I have a whole problem with the time travel thing, anyways. 'Cause,
I wonder why.
how advanced this perceived civilization is. That would be like something they would know the answer is. It's not like you might survive. It would be a small chance. It would be a definitive. Like if we're like, we're going to fly to the sun, and if you die, you die. That's a definitive thing. You're going to die if you go into the sun. Not there's a chance. I mean, so
Well-
it seems like an absolute. They would know Max would die, or not Max.
Do you think-
David
Actually-
would die or not die?
Do you think Max Prime would know, but this new Max doesn't? Because
He
Max
still
Prime
has the same
used
knowledge
like
of Max Prime.
Max Prime said, I will not fry your brain. I've never done this. I've done this 0 times, but is like certain and confident this is how it's going to happen. Goofy Max is like a lot of could be's.
It doesn't matter though because he has the knowledge. Like, he didn't lose the knowledge of he will die.
he just gained
That's
some
still
of
in there.
David's personality is pretty much
Yeah.
the point of what that was.
So it would have
I
been
mean, we
hilarious.
don't
He's
know-
like, you might die, and then he actually does die because that's what should have happened.
Well,
That'd be a horrible movie.
He's never
Would be.
tested it on a human. because he only takes one thing from each location,
Each
pretty
planet
much.
or
Each
whatever.
planet.
Right.
We don't know if he's tested this on other species, and
We do.
those some have and some haven't.
We do know because he says it's normal to go back in time and do it. So this isn't his first trip of time travel. This is a normal thing. This is his job to take creatures from other galaxies, not other planets, which was interesting.
Okay, so what Max is saying here
them back
then
in time.
is a human is weaker than a Puckmarin.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. But maybe not, since he's never tried it on a human.
Well, my thing on them is they're so advanced. They would know the answer.
Yeah, they would have had.
Yes, yeah, with Crimson saying there, they would know. However, if they only take one thing from a planet, they wouldn't know the testing of something that they have currently. So, like the Puckmarin, they wouldn't know it survived, because if they did know, it would already be at its home.
No, but I'm saying they've done this with other species.
Yes.
The Puckmarin, you're right on that. They wouldn't know if a Puckmarin would survive until it's been done. Unless they can make an educated guess based off of all the other things they've transported as well. Because they know how these things are physiologically built. They know the 10% thing, which has been debunked at this point. But they know what humans are because of David at this point. So if they can figure out he wouldn't survive, they would.
Crimson's larger point, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, is that they are advanced enough to have certain species to fall into specific categories to know whether or not, like this one would live, this one would die, this one could be weakened, this one would suffer from this one would potentially suffer from this. They would have a lot of context and scientific experimentation to have a good idea, if not that a guarantee as to what would happen.
Yeah, I mean, like us, we know if we cut off an arm, we're not growing back. But if we cut a starfish, chances are that can grow back, or an axolotl, some species of lizards. And we're not super intelligent. We just know that based off of his experience, which is something they would have with the time travel stuff with other species.
Fun fact on your random example. If you look at your fingers and you see the white moons in your nails, if you lose your finger up into your white moons, your finger will actually grow back.
Oh, the tip?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not quite as advanced as starfish, I know.
All right, then, Hummer, would you like to make a point?
Well, let's go back to that wonderful thing about the light and the dark that drives me crazy through this whole movie. So David calls Jeff and says, I need a signal. I got to be able to find the house, right? Okay, it's daylight. Jeff digs through the room, finds that stupid box of fireworks that I mentioned earlier that are still there 8 years later.
And it took him 4 hours to find them, apparently.
Yeah, it must have been at least an 8-hour search. He climbs out the window of the house. It's still daylight. We see him on the roof. It's daylight. Now, David is in the ship. It's pitch black. He's like, oh, this is beautiful. He's looking at all the lights of nighttime, the skyline of the city, Miami at night. And then he notices the fireworks in the sky once Jeff successfully actually gets one to actually go off. So was Jeff on the roof for hours and hours and hours trying to set fireworks off? And then finally he was successful after dark? I mean, again, this whole start in the daytime, then now it's nighttime. Obviously, fireworks aren't going to show up in the daytime. So, but from the time David called home at Al's, it was daytime. And he makes a phone call to Jeff. Jeff finds the fireworks, climbs out of the house. It's still all daytime. Jeff is now on the roof attempting to light fireworks. It's still daytime. We pan to David in the ship, and he's looking through the window on the ship, and it's nighttime. Hours have gone by. Were David and Max just hovering in the sky for hours?
No, they just took a normal flight from
Okay.
Japan to the west coast of the United States.
It just, again, it's the timeline thing with the day and the dark, the light and the dark, the day and the night. It's not the first time that happens in the movie. It happens earlier in the movie too, and I mentioned that. It bothers me. That just bothers me. I don't know if as a viewer I'm supposed to just subconsciously go, okay, hours have gone by. Well, the rest of the family, the mom, the dad, the not the scientist guys, they're not police detectives, the other bad guys.
Security.
The NASA security, they're all in the house, and Jeff just disappears and no one questions that. I mean, they'd be going, where'd your son go? They'd be investigating if he just all of a sudden is gone for hours.
Presumably they could hear him walking back and forth on the roof too.
Thank you. Exactly. That's
why they were listening to Price is Right.
Yeah, they were listening to Tom
Well, that's
Kennedy.
true. That is true. That there is at least noise going on.
Turn the TV up a little louder.
I
have issues
Alan
with the
Texas
day and night.
Florida. Not that it would really mattered much. But.
Florida, because it was the Gator.
Then that's even worse. That's even worse for the timeline then, considering how fast the ship can move.
Yeah,
Oh no! Wait! Because when David takes a paper map from Al's, and then he says something about having to find. Once I find us, what is it? He says
Landmark.
something. Then I'll know where I'm going. And then you see him like hovering over a freeway, and you see the sign that says Fort Lauderdale, and then the one that says Miami, and it's like 58 miles to Miami. He's literally an hour from home, which in Max would take 2.1 seconds for him to get there. I mean, yeah. And it's broad daylight.
So I don't think it's hours that have passed.
I think it is.
When Jeff goes out the window to get to the roof, it's sunset. It's not day.
It's still light out.
When David
called,
I think
when David called,
it was light out. Yes. It's a weird. It's definitely a weird timing thing. I think
it's wrong.
From Jeff on the roof to the pit to setting off the firework, I'd say the minimum it could be is an hour.
I disagree.
Because when he goes up to the roof, the sun is setting, and then it goes to David and it's dark, and when it cuts back to Jeff, it's dark. But when Jeff gets the phone call, it's daytime. So it sounds more like it's reasonable for it to be hours of Jeff finding fireworks in the house after the phone call.
But when David makes that phone call, as soon as he hangs up, Jeff makes an excuse to when Jeff is on the phone and the mom says, "Hey, don't be on the phone. David might be trying to call." Okay. So Jeff's already on the phone and they're watching Price is Right, and it's prime daylight. Then the next scene we see Jeff rummaging for the fireworks, and he's in a room with a window. It's still daylight. Then he climbs out a window. It's daylight. Did it take him 2 hours to get on the roof? Because from the time he climbed out that window to on the roof, you're saying now it's like sunset. That would be a lapse in time again, just from the climbing out of the window of the house to getting on the roof. There'd be a lapse in time there. Out the window, it's bright. On the roof, it's sunset.
Yes, the biggest time is him in the room, which looks like it could be 3 p.m, to him climbing out the window, which now looks like sunset.
I still disagree.
Yeah.
Okay.
On board, I don't think it makes sense at all. But
I just have issues with the light and the dark through this movie, and the time lapsing in this movie. I wish there was more continuity to it. I wish there was at least even just a sentence of dialogue, like anybody ready for dinner, or just something to give us a sense of time, as opposed to just the light and the dark of day and night.
Yeah, I can pass off the like I said, the first issues with the transporting of the ship originally back to the NASA headquarters. I could pass that off as the director trying to convey a time change. I can't let this conclusion one go because everything's supposed to be kind of happening concurrently in a more coherent manner. I'm inclined to agree with Crimson Hummer on this one.
Okie doke. I'm trying to remember whose point that was to me. I think that was Hummer's.
That was fine.
So, Ryder, you have a point.
Good question. I guess I don't. I'm going through my notes here. I do like that. I think we already passed it up, but we kind of touched on it. I like that Jeff was teaching Bruiser how to catch a frisbee. It was a very, very character-driven thing that I quite liked.
Yeah. Whether to uphold the training because that's what David's passion was when they were at the championship in the beginning, or that was just something of Jeff himself, or even his parents asking Jeff to do.
Mm-hmm.
Something I'll touch on, which is just a little question. When David agrees to be time traveled, he's sitting in the seat, in the chair, and they go up into space. And then it does the whole, the quick cuts between Max and the time travel, space clouds, and David. The chair David's in is now vanished.
Oh, is it
I don't
zooming
know
in
if
on his
he's
face?
Yeah, I don't know if he's standing or he's supposed to be sitting without a back. The chair behind him is no longer visible.
Yeah, I did notice.
But does it look like he's in a sitting position?
Maybe.
Is the camera angle just higher and we just don't see the chair?
I don't think. I think it could be for towards the last shots because it zoomed in that much on his face. But to begin, no.
Okay.
I mean, the
Well, I know the chair.
could be
The chair
different.
disappears when he's laying on the floor. When Max scans him, the chair has now sunk into the floor of the ship.
Yeah.
The chair disappears when he lays on the floor for his scan. The chair's gone. I know that. But
Speaking of the scan, it kind of brings up another issue I have with the supposed advancements of this civilization. Why do they need to take the creatures away and then return them via time travel when they could just operate on them at the location?
Oh,
I mean,
Crimson,
they don't
gotta
even
take him back to Phaleon.
Yeah,
they really don't.
I thought the idea was that they. Well, I don't think they have to. You're right. I think the story reason they give is that they do take them back to Phaleon and then back to wherever they were.
Yeah, I'm asking
that
why
was my
such
understanding.
an advanced. That is what they're going for. I just don't know why they
Max
actually need
wasn't
to do that.
Programmed to do
Well, I
such
mean,
a thing.
He can put in stuff in a human mind. He can just scan it. He can scan the bodies. He can do whatever he wants. You can even have a Phaleon alien, if there is a such thing, or because we don't know what the Phaleons are, on board Max as well. It's
Yeah, but
I
Max
think
Max
they
isn't a
gave themselves.
Max isn't a scientist. He's not a scientist or a doctor
He's a
of some
super intelligence.
of some sort. But
It-
maybe
it-
there's
It lends to the fact is we don't fully understand of what Max is, whether he's supposed to be a super intelligent AI construct or whether he is just a consciousness of something that was uploaded to a machine. And
Yeah.
variations.
Is it kind of like? Look, I'm
his
not.
job
a
is
huge- Yeah,
his
I'm
job
not-
is transportation. Yeah.
I'm not the biggest Transformer guy, but I feel like it's kind of like that with the Cybertrons. Like they're robots, right? Ish.
I mean,
yeah,
no,
but
they're actually organisms.
But they're
So
organisms,
they're
though.
transformed.
So they're
Yeah.
not they're not AI constructs or a
We
variation.
perceive them as robots because that's how we can rationalize them, but they're actually aliens that transform.
Well, just
Okay.
I have a point. Well, I don't know. This might be irrelevant. Just because Max might have the intelligence still doesn't mean that's his job. So if his job is to go retrieve specimen, creature, whatever, and take it back to his planet for others to test or whatever, and then return it, Max's job is literally transportation. He's go get and take it back, regardless of his knowledge or his capabilities or, Does that make
I
sense?
agree that's what his purpose is. I'm just curious why logistically they needed the added steps of having to take creatures to Phaleon and then take them back when they don't really need to bring them to Phaleon to do whatever they need. That's kind of what I was like. I agree, he's in this form, transportation, but I don't know why they would need that.
Okay. When it all probably could have just been right there on the ship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is kind of the stereotype with aliens anyways, probing, right? And in our world, everyone's like, they took me up and probed me.
Yeah.
I
On the ship.
Yeah.
They didn't take me back to their planet.
Yeah.
I have a potential question. I don't know if this is a problem. I'm still kind of wrestling with it. I know David doesn't feel like he belongs here, but I think a 12-year-old is essentially pretty much agreeing to potentially get fried in order for the chance of making it back. And granted, he's 12, so he's not like a young kid who would throw this off. He has like at least a somewhat of a conceptual understanding of, I guess, the risk he's about to take.
I think he does.
Yeah, does it come too easily to make the choice to risk dying to him?
I don't think so, because he actually makes the comment to Max. Max apologizes to David, and then David says, "It's my family, not my home," and he's emotional about it. So,
Yeah, I have the written down quote: "If I stay, those scientists will treat me like a guinea pig for the rest of my life."
Rest of my life.
Which is when he was being tested, he ran out of fear because his brain was doing the monitor.
Right.
So his thought is, as soon as I land, I'm just going to have more of that fear.
That's the rest of my life. That's the rest of my life. I'd rather risk dying to have the life I had before this all happened than to stay here and live in a world I don't know and I don't recognize.
I was going to make a connect or an analogy, but it's horrid, so I'm going to refrain.
Crimson, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think the driving force is the lifelong guinea pig thing. If that wasn't on the table, do you guys think he would have stayed? Like, if he could just stay with his family with the 8-year gap, do you think he would have done that? Or do you think he would have still gone back?
I think he would have gone back.
That's a good question. I don't know.
I think he would have gone back.
Staying wouldn't have a fear. The fear would be Max saying you could die.
Yeah, see, there would be no virtual threat of his life being a guinea pig at that point. I think I'm convinced.
It wasn't his.
Sorry, you finish up.
Sorry, we're both. But it wasn't his. I mean, it's still his parents and his brother, but it's a whole life and a whole history has taken place that he wasn't a part of. It's like he was in a coma, an entire world has gone on and he's not a part of that. I think that alone.
The difference of the coma is he didn't age. So it's a little bit like the Stranger Things little Byers zombie boy kind of thing.
Kinda, yeah. I mean, he's, the world went on without him. Oh yeah. All his friends are in college. All his, I mean, he starts from scratch.
I can't wait to tell my friends, but all his friends are 20.
Yeah, I'm not saying it would have been an easy choice to stay behind, but I think there would have been the lack of threat that would have pushed him into making the risky choice. I think he would have chosen to stay without the threat of being a guinea pig for the rest of his life. It would have been difficult, but his family loves him, and I think they would have helped him through that.
I think at the age of 12, he would have agreed. I think eventually down his life, he would have regretted it.
Agreed to stay or agreed to go back?
Agreed to go back. Like, I think when he hit, maybe somewhere in his 20s, he would have been like, I made the wrong decision.
I think without the guinea pig option, I think he would stay, because I don't think there's enough of a reason for him to risk dying just to go back.
But he was so emotional.
Is it worth dying to get those 8 years back from a 12-year-old's mind? I don't know. I'm leaning towards no, personally.
Yes, without the guinea pig thing, it's he wants more of the years rather than missing his family, because his family's right there and present, trying to comfort him in.
But it's a family he doesn't recognize.
But it's a family he still trusts.
Like he's still relying
Well,
on
yeah,
them throughout the film.
it's his family, and he loves them, and they love him. But it's a family he doesn't recognize. I mean,
I wish they showed more awkwardness.
Wouldn't you feel like a stranger? I would feel like a complete stranger in that scenario. I would. Yeah, that's my mom and my dad and my brother, but they don't know. I don't know them anymore.
There's like I said, I think without the threat and him choosing to stay, it definitely. I'm not saying there would be an adjustment period for sure. There would definitely be a level of awkwardness, but I think eventually it would just become normal because young kids
and a lot of therapy.
Yeah, I mean that's just coma patients.
Yeah, that's true.
And a lot of therapy, yeah.
A lot of therapy, but like a lot of young kids are very adaptable in that way. They can take change more, not to say more easily, but they absorb it more easily at some form or fashion. I'm not saying you won't need therapy and there won't be an adjustment period, but I think that eventually he'd be okay with it. It would be. And yeah, as you say, Springs, he might eventually regret it. But I think without the threat of the guinea pig thing, I think he might have chosen to stay. Because then it's only the risk of... It's just the risk of dying.
It's what is the bigger fear.
Yeah.
I wish they showed him being more awkward with this different family. Because we get a little bit when he's in the hospital bed at the very beginning of this new world for him. But after that, it's pretty smooth sailing with everybody. He gets very well acquainted with his brother. It's like no time passed between them. They still interact the same way.
But if you think about it, his brother's
really the same.
His brother's really the only one he really has any real communication with. I mean, he talks to his dad on the phone, but it's really basic. It's just answering questions. It's like, yeah, Dad, they locked me in my room, but Jeff, he actually has conversation with Jeff and talks about his feelings with Jeff. So
I'm thinking about it a little more now. And with that instance of when the Faraday comes up and asks like, hey, can we experiment, on David? And he goes, no way. He seems pretty comfortable with his family then.
Yeah. At that point, they're going through an adjustment period.
Yeah. Well, looking at my notes, I have a little bit things here and there, but to be respectful of everyone's time right now, I have, I guess, one last thing I'll touch on, which has irked me as a kid watching this. I don't think I ever really caught on to it, but the more I watch it, being older, it irks me when David gets back to his time and meets up with his family on the boat, and he tells his mom, "I love you." She never says "I love you" back. She takes it like a compliment. Like, oh, thanks. It's just weird.
Do you think it's out of character?
He's 12. How often has he ever said that?
No, that's fine.
No,
like
he's talking about the mom saying it back.
The mom's the weird thing of, it's like, oh, thanks.
It would have been more, I think at this point, for the parents, it would have just been instinctual to reply, "I love you too," And then the realization could have come afterwards.
Like, it makes sense, like, when he says, "I love you, Jeff," like, there's, like, the awkward, like, oh, something's up with David. But he has nothing against his mom. They have no, like, he's not a troublemaker, and it's a quarrel for her to be, like, confused over it or something.
I mean, her confusion towards it implies that he doesn't say that to her. So
that's what I'm saying. I have a feeling.
It might not be normal for her to say it back because he doesn't say it in the first place.
That's what I was saying. Or that's what
Okay. It's just weird. I don't know.
Well, you come from a family where you hear it all the time. It's been drilled into your head.
Yes, with my family, yeah.
In your family. So there's lots of families where "I love you" isn't something that's easily said, or, it's pretty rarely said in some families. So it's possible, for a 12-year-old to tell his mom that he loves her, that might have been just an odd moment for the mom. We're like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, thank you. Where'd that
I
come
guess-
from? What prompted that? As opposed to, oh, I love you too.
I guess another thing that's kind of just, I guess, cautiously weird about it is that, like, this is the ending to a Disney movie. And that's how it's treated.
Yes and no, based off
Yeah,
what you
yes
said.
and
Yes
no.
and no. It's
Yes
not
and no.
Disney. Like, it's
They
only...
didn't make it. They just
No, they
distributed
didn't. So, a bit weird, but that's just me.
What's weird is he kept an alien, and he tells his brother to not say anything. So how is he going to keep that a secret?
Yeah,
That'll
that's
be
not
found
going to
out.
stay a
That's-
secret.
that's not gonna stay-
There's
that'll
a
be
reason
something.
that there's no
Bruiser
sequels
could
to this
eat it.
film. Yeah.
We don't know.
That would be
We're
awesome.
gonna eat it.
That would be a good
Ew.
post-credit scene.
Ew.
Yeah, that's kind
Disgusting.
of the kind of humor that comes out of the Guardians of the Galaxy post-credit scenes.
Nice.
I'm like, that's a Gremlins thing. Like,
I mean, to be fair, if Bruiser did eat the Puckmarin, at least that solves any potential future ramifications of the choice they have.
remind me,
Ew.
what's the Demodog name that Dustin gives in Stranger Things? It's the
I
the
don't
fourth
remember it.
Musketeer.
I don't remember, but I know what you're talking about.
Anyway, it eats his cat.
Yeah. Well, I also thought the little guy looked like the little guy in Star Wars, the engineer guy and
Babu Frick.
Babu Frick, no.
Babu Frick. Yeah, but if he didn't have clothes on.
No,
Yeah.
do not
No.
compare the Puckmarin to Babu Freak. No.
I disagree. I
Such a
disagree.
reaction.
See, as someone
we got a 10
who
and a 1 of characters there. No thanks.
as someone who dislikes the Rise of Skywalker, I have to agree with Crimson. I thought of Babu Frick when I met the Babu.
Tiny and they're brown. That's it.
Wow. Size is the only thing they have in comparison.
Yeah.
Disagree.
Anyway.
I will say Babu Frick is a lot more gimmicky in Star Wars than the Puckmarin is here. It's pretty, like, it's more cutesy, cuddly fun, whereas Babu Frick is more spastic humor.
I thought the puppeteering of the creatures and whatnot was well done. Little Puckmarin and his little sound effects, and they made him very likable and sweet, and
Yeah,
unlike the worm guy that had a cold, that was disgusting. But they, just I assume it's puppeteering. Is he puppeteering? I assume he is.
Yeah,
Yes.
the
Yeah.
Puckmarin's introduction, you can see the strings.
Yeah, you
when
can
it's
see
He's
the
in
little
his
cables.
introduction.
Yeah, but he's so
It's no
cute.
Jim Henson product, but
Oh, no. But he's adorable.
does anyone have any last minute things to put in? One more from
I wanna
everyone else.
I would like a Puckmarin. Just saying.
Hammer wants a Puckmarin.
I didn't really touch on it. That it was brought up in the beginning as like a fact, but I really did like how the ship looked, and I think it aged pretty darn well with the chrome visuals. One of the parts while it's flying across the states, it goes over a marshy area, and the little ponds are getting the ship's reflection in it, which was a really good detail. They didn't have to put that in there. It wouldn't have been very noticeable. But they added that in.
I'm in agreement with you, Crimson. I do like the design of the ship. However, being a CGI ship, I don't know how connected you are to the visual of it, being that you grew up with Mind's Eye, and they have some similarities in the computer design look.
Interesting. You think my mind is so narrow-minded. I've watched a lot of stuff in my life. Oh no. I mean, I could see what you're going for. Now my thought going into it, I mean, even there's one part where they blend the practical and CG very, very well, and it's at Al's, where the ship is lowering down at the gas station. There are naturally casted shadows on stuff. So there was an actual ship prop casting shadow being overlaid with the CG ship in that spot in particular. Because there's several moments where there's fake shadows, like the blimp and when it leaves the hangar. But there's some actual physical ship parts getting overlaid with CG. I think they did a good job with.
Okay.
I
Ren, do you
appreciated the special
bummer.
effects on the ship. I thought the ship was great. I know that I've seen a lot of sci-fi, and reflective ship isn't something I see a lot of. So I can appreciate that little nod to detail. And as I said earlier, the whole shape shifting, they didn't have to do that in this movie, but I appreciated that they did. I thought that was a cool effect. I enjoyed the detail of this ship. I thought it was well done.
All right. Ryder, do you have any last thing you'd like to pop in?
Yeah. I think I mentioned it, but it really bothered me that Bruiser wasn't there when he returned at all. At least
He's on the boat.
Yeah, he's on the boat. But I mean,
He's on
like
the boat.
he's not in the forest though.
Oh, in the ravine. He's not
Yeah.
in the
Oh, yeah.
ravine.
Because that's where Bruiser was left. So that to me was the indication that they were returned not right at that time, but just around that time. Which
I
is
guess
fine.
so. I would have caught up because I'm like, do you think as soon as David fell into the ravine, Bruiser barked and then ran away?
That's exactly what I think.
Why was he barking there in the first place?
Yeah, I'm just
That's a good
attributing
question,
it to, I'm
'cause
just saying it's
nothing was
animal
there.
sixth sense.
Yeah.
But the ship wasn't there.
Yeah.
The ship
And we
wasn't
know
there, but
there's
it
no
was
aliens
foggy.
here.
It was foggy, and there was like a blanket of fog in that
Barking at a
ravine.
bug.
You know, who knows?
And
He was barking at
was
something.
David really the easiest thing to nab? He was covered
Oh.
in trees, so how?
Look,
there's
it wasn't about ease. Okay, they answered that real quickly with David
said,
saying,
"Why not?"
"Why me? Why not?" That's taken care of.
That's not a good excuse, though.
It's not good, but it's still something given.
Well, I mean, if you can see somebody in a parking lot getting into their car, that makes more sense to me than stumbling across a kid that knocked himself out under some trees.
I don't think Max gave it any second thought. Then again, Max could have gotten like a stick bug. Could have gotten anything.
Yeah, I mean, that's the problem I have with him being a survey
Could have gotten a
ship,
net.
anyways. Why is he only grabbing one creature from every galaxy? Because he said,
And no one ever
Galaxy.
saw him. No one ever saw Max in the sky. Never heard the ship.
Going light speed.
Never saw a thing.
Well,
Picked up
the
David.
Uh-huh.
the
David was
80s
piloting.
punk rockers clearly
Uh-huh.
saw them, but
Now, once
the
David's
geeks.
piloted,
yeah, the geeks. I presumably Max just took the quote unquote most intelligent life form on the planet, so that's what he was sampling. I would assume that's what they're doing, and hence why he took David and not a dog or other form of life on Earth, because there are many forms of life on Earth that they could have taken to sample. But I'm assuming he was limited to a specific variant, I suppose, of species.
if they can do that, wouldn't they be able to tell like a matured mind to a non? And if so, wouldn't they want like year old?
Potentially,
That's
yes.
what I'm saying. I don't think it was calculated.
I mean, it kind of has to be if it's a survey vessel. You don't just
Max
pick
is the
one random
survey
thing in a
vessel.
galaxy.
They just
Huh?
know of a planet locate, or maybe they don't even know the planet. They just know the galaxy.
I don't think you realize how big the Milky Way is.
Oh, no, I know it's vast. I just think to Max it's random.
If it's
It's not calculated. He's not thinking over things.
it
He's just
can't
like,
be
I'll grab one
randomized
thing.
because of how many planets that are barren in our galaxy alone. They
Well,
would have
no.
they would
Okay,
have had
that's
to
not what
they
I
would have
mean.
had to survey. They would have to have pointed at Earth and say you're going
For
here.
life.
Yeah.
Yes, to identify life.
And there's probably some sort of protocol about if you're only grabbing one life form, it should be a particular age of some sort, like a newborn or something that's matured. I don't know what they'd want, but
Well, I know,
probably not a random in between age.
Crimson, you brought it up how, like, there's things that Max has done and that has never done before, and like that's kind of pretty much apparent by what Max says. It's interesting that a human is the one thing to like change his whole life of Max, or like alter not his whole life, but like alter Max's whole personality and change.
That's a
But then again,
problem in a lot of.
yeah, I was just gonna say we don't. Well, no, he's never scanned a brain before.
Well, for all we know,
But
he's learned something from each creature he's ever taken. We don't know that. Maybe he's learned
Presumably,
Yeah.
he at least
skill from a creature from that planet, and then he
But
learned skill.
what we don't
we
know,
don't know.
we don't know is that if he scanned someone else after David, would it change Max his whole personality again?
It certainly could.
It'd probably be a blend.
It certainly could.
The
Why?
David
Why not?
memory and the new memory,
Right.
as
right.
well as
Right.
Max.
Right.
I feel like that could rule Max to termination.
He's been
if
corrected.
he's an autonomous drone, yeah.
Possibly.
That's true. We just witnessed him die twice. Once he gets back home, he's terminated.
Yeah, we don't know how Flareon? No, that's a Pokemon.
Phaleon.
Phaleon.
Uh,
Phaleon.
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 Phaleon beans work.
We don't.
If he even is one himself.
That is true.
That is true, yeah.
Answers that will never, or questions that will never have answers.
Until we get a remake that answers every question.
Oh, there you
Anyone-
go.
Can't
anyone else
wait
have
for
any
that.
point to make?
I'm
I'm
good.
sure there's something, but I'll say I'm done.
I'm good.
Hummer, any last point to make?
Compliance.
All right. Well, that sounds like you do have one then.
No, I
You're
don't.
agreeing to it. Okay.
I don't.
All right. With that, we will go to the end. I mean, that's Flight of the Navigator, the film coverage. We will then go to our summary and ratings to give Hummer here an example. We will start with. Let's start with writer.
Oh boy. All right. All right. I'll do my objective.
That is
first.
if you settled on an objective.
Yeah, I think I got it. I think I got it. I think the plot of this film hinges on mostly okay rule set. Obviously, we took issue with some of the time travel stuff. But by the most part, I think it's pretty simple. And I think it services the film. Alien. It's a typical. It's an abduction story that kind of went a little too long, pretty much, and that's why Max forms a connection to David, and from there, most things are facilitated by character choices or characters being killed. In the case of Max, and then as for world building, yeah, there's a few issues. I could classify the ship not causing wind shear as a world building issue, and I can call it plot armor for the scientists on the ground. But yeah, it's a problem. I'm in agreement with Crimson. I'm pretty sure the math is inconsistent for distance traveled. And but I think it's okay. There's yeah, I think it's okay. The going to characters though, well, we discussed that Al has a stronger place in the script than Carolyn. Carolyn?
Carolyn.
Yes.
Yeah. Has a stronger place in the script than Carolyn, so she can be removed. Max's knowledge is inconsistent, which is a problem. I think David is fine. I don't think he does anything particularly out of character. I think the parents react normally. Outside of them just letting NASA take the kid, just letting them take David, I have a problem with that. I don't think they would have agreed to that so easily. That's a scene that would have been dragged out a lot longer. There would have been more conversations. But I think outside of that, they're fairly reasonable. Jeff is, I think, probably ended up being one of my favorite side characters, being someone really dislikable at the start of the film to being someone, to being David's biggest supporter at the end. And it's not really, we don't really see the character arc, but we can see at least the notes that led to the change of his character, which was, includes, being the one to train Bruiser how to play fetch with the frisbee, and also him apologizing, and he's also helping look after David in the hospital. So there's a lot of things that go into that I think show Jeff's turnaround as a character, and I think that really, really, he just becomes one of David's most ardent supporters that I quite liked. Um, I think that's it for characters. Yeah, I'm at a 7 objectively on this one. I quite, I think it's good. I think it's passable. It definitely has some world building issues and some plot issues, um, and some character issues, which is what I think holds it back from being anything above, I guess, the best of average on my scale. Subjectively, um, I don't. My subjective was 5.5. I'm still at 5.5, and the reason for that is because there were lots of things in this film that I really liked, which was the humor. I think they worked for their jokes and they paid them off very well. And there are other parts of the film where I got frustrated. I think I talked about how much I much prefer the dynamic that David and Max had in the first half of their time together before Max kind of downloads David's personality. At that point, it just kind of felt like two delinquents on running a very, very powerful ship. And I don't know, the humor just didn't land as well for me at that point. So I'm actually just right in the middle. I'm at 5.5 subjectively. I'd watch it again, but I'm not going to go out of my way to watch it. So. Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to go next. I'm going to start with my objective. I think let's see here, because, good old Sprinks always forgets a detail, one or another. So let's start. Let's start with lighting. I think lighting's great. A lot of natural uses of lighting and artificial uses of lighting, both in great ways. I like the artificial lighting usages of introducing the future parents and Jeff. How the dad is coated in shadows before walking forward, and then Jeff in the hallway is standing right in the doorframe, being in shadows before he's revealed. I like that. Crimson pointing out the shadowing of a real prop of the ship being interacting with the environment is great detail. So all that I think good. I'm trying to think if there was a bad lighting choice. I guess the time change that doesn't really fall into lighting. There's just like the time and hour. So that's world building, I guess. Let's go into acting. I think the acting's passable. I don't know if any of the acting I would say is amazing. I guess Paul Rubens' voice acting is good. It has a lot of like modifications over it to make it sound alienated, robotic, whatever you want to call that. So it's modified, but it's still him, especially when he laughs after downloading David's brain. That's a Pee-wee laugh. So all the acting is fine. I think the humor hits in parts because it's not all targeted for a younger audience humor. Some of it's a little older humor, which is fine. So it kind of hits like all the family-friendly points to make. I think, unfortunately, what I wish this movie had with how much it's trying to convey, I wish it had like an extra 20 minutes or an extra half hour to just like add a little more into it to flesh it out a little more than kind of keeping things a little cramped, because the cramped stuff seems to rush things or cut stuff out or include something that doesn't fully pace well to a connection. And I think like the 5.5 to me of my scaling elevator is the pacing here. The pacing is very, it flows as a movie, but the connection of transitions from one scene to another feels very jumpy, from like David getting tested to then David with his family, then David going to NASA, getting a new test, to then talking to Max in his head. Like it's moving the plot along, but it's very, I don't know, scene by scene. I'm in agreement that I think Max is a completely different character after the brain scan. I'm not like writer. I think I like both characters differently for their own. Um, let's see, what else have I not done? Cinematography, I think there's some shots I really do enjoy. I like all the match shots of the familiarity of the house in 78 to 86, and then they reuse that same shot again. Well, not reuse shot of the film, but the same shot angle at the end when David goes back home when his mom calls him on the boat. It's the same lined up shot. So I like that it's used 3 times, but they're differently used scenes. There are a lot of white blips in this movie. You can see them all over the place of the film. There's a lot of film texture. You can see of like little black lines in like a frame or two throughout the film. There's some voiceover work that's not great. I didn't catch any stand-ins, but I did catch the wig on David. So that's kind of poor. The makeup on the parents, I think the hair is fine. I am agreeing, so the wrinkles on the face and everything don't look great. It's very, not clown, but just kind of cartoon, like very plastic. I guess that's what I'm looking like, plasticky look, but not shiny. Yeah, overall, I give it a 6.5 objective. I might be a little harsh because of the time it was made of 86, but I think it's fair to give because I think with a little more time, because I don't know how long the production time was, and I just know the budget, but I think they could have cut some scenes out and made something stronger. Subjectively, pretty easy. This is a 9. This is a very fun, enjoyable movie. I'll watch it again. I recommend it. I picked it for the pod for a reason. I quite enjoy it. I think this movie is the reason why I have the Beach Boys song lyric for lyric memorized. Yeah, I really enjoy it. And hopefully Sinister can watch it so we can cover it, his thoughts on it for the pod. With this, we will go to Hummer next to save Crimson for last.
I agree with things Ryder said. I agree with things you, Sprink, said. I have a lot of picky issues with the timeline, with the lighting, with the not cinematography lighting, but the day to night timeline. I think some of it was intentional, and then some of it I'm like, not quite sure if that was intentional. The wig, David's hair, oh my gosh, that's way too obvious. I agree with the makeup job on the mom and the dad, the aging, the parents. That could have been done so well without CGI, without just natural makeup could have aged them. It does not look natural. It was poorly done. And you get the close-ups on mom's face, and it's just not good. Objectively, I mean, storyline I think is pretty good, easy to follow. I don't nitpick things apart as quite as scientifically as you guys do under a microscope, but objectively I gave it a 7. Subjectively, I adore this movie. I love this movie. There's a reason I've seen this movie 30 times. I quote this movie. I get around, come on the radio, and I see David and Max dancing around on the ship. It's just a visual I get. Anytime I hear that song, I associate that song with this movie. This movie makes me smile. I wouldn't call it a favorite, but definitely enjoyable. I will most definitely see it again. I'm sure I will see it a few dozen times as my life plays out. I gave it an 8.5.
Okay, and then for Crimson.
All right, I'll start with my subjective first. I will be echoing Writer's 5.5. It is not a movie I will be watching on my own. I wouldn't go out and just watch it, but if for some reason it's on in the living room and they're like, hey, you want to watch it? Sure, I'll watch it. It was okay. There was funny moments. There were the big chunk where Max Prime died, and past that wasn't so enjoyable for me after that, so that kind of dampered a bit. Probably would have been a 6 if he maintained Max Prime, but it will. Objectively, lots of things were said through the three of you that I agreed with in large. The security at NASA is laughable. The visual effects were really good. I complimented them right before the ratings. There were 2 CG moments that didn't really look well, and I think even for the time. One of them we touched on, one we did not. One being the blimp shadow, where everyone's still. The reason they do that is so they can cut around the characters and then move the shadow asset over them, which is the same issue. The second thing I have is when they leave the hangar in the ship, there's a cutout of a guy in where the shadow of the ship is, but the guy moves out, so there's an outline of a guy in shadow where he's actually not standing where the cutout was because he moved. So 2 bad CG moments that I caught, but overall the Chrome looked good. I agreed with the parents not letting them go so easily, and if they had, at least one of them would have gone with. The fact that we can cut out Carolyn so easily without really having to change much in the script at all is unfortunate for her, because I did like her, but kick her out. She can join Yvonne and Violet from our current kicked out roster that I remember. we'll have a whole roster at some point. David was consistent throughout. I didn't catch the wig, but if it's very, very obvious during the time travel part, unfortunately I was writing a lot during that about how the time travel even works and what the civilization would need to utilize it. So I didn't actually see the wig part there. So I'll say that is just bad in the costume department. The makeup isn't bad, or is bad for the Ellie part. So overall, could be potentially harsh, but I'm giving it a 5 objectively. It just seemed to be a lot of wrong in this. So I'll leave it at that. I agreed with the timeline issues that Hummer brought up as well.
All right. That's our scoring. Before we let Ryder here take over the outro, I have one last of that bonus you've been waiting for about news of a remake.
Oh
no.
I
You
was
were
joking.
Yeah. In May 2009, the Hollywood... again, take this with a grain of salt. The Hollywood Reporter reported that Disney was already readying a remake of the film. Brad Capland was writing the script, and Mandel partners David Hoberman and Todd Lieberman would serve as producers. In November 2012, Disney hired Safety Not Guaranteed's director Colin Trevorrow and writer/producer Derek Connolly to rewrite the script. That's point number 1. Point number 2. In September 2017, Walt Disney Pictures and Lionsgate announced that a reboot of the film is in production, with Joe Henderson from TV's Lucifer writing the script. Shortly after the Lionsgate/Henderson announcement in November of the same year, Neil Blomkamp, I think,
Blomkamp,
tweeted
maybe,
that
yeah.
Oates Studio has begun developing a reboot as its first feature film. That's point number 2. And lastly, point number 3. In September 2021, the remake was announced to be back in development, with Bryce Dallas Howard set to direct and will feature a female protagonist. It is to be released on Disney+.
Wow.
It's not going to be good.
Wow.
That's a timeline.
Straight to Disney Plus. Bryce Dallas Howard, she directed a flop at some point. What did she
I'm
direct?
thinking they should have just
Jurassic
leave well enough
World
alone. If they're, why are they trying so hard?
She acted in it.
Yeah, I know.
She directed an episode of Mandalorian. I think episode 4.
She directed episodes in season 1 and season 2. I actually think she's a good director. I haven't really seen her writing though.
Yeah, well, I've seen her act in Pete's Dragon remake, so if that's a Disney remake she has connection to, I don't feel confident with this one.
She
Anyway,
plays a decent vampire.
Oh, vampire, yeah, and Gwen Stacy.
She plays a decent vampire. But that's about it.
So a remake has been so-called in the works since 2009.
That's insane.
Oh boy. Well, that's
Why are they trying so hard?
that's a
Why
hellish.
are they trying so hard?
That's a very hellish production schedule. I'm very worried.
Yeah, Hummer, I couldn't tell.
Wow.
Disney's just trying to get everything they own remade at this point. Oh well.
Wow.
Well,
Sometimes you just leave well enough alone.
yeah, Disney doesn't learn their lesson though.
No, they have not. Over the years, they have not.
Yeah.
No,
Well-
live action Lilo and Stitch. Here
This is why you have live action of every animated movie. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, with that, everybody, shall I read us out?
I think go ahead,
Yes.
buddy.
All right. Well, thank you for listening, audience, whether it be Spotify, Anchor, Amazon, Castbox, Google Podcasts, Pocket Casts, and Samsung. And if you're on the visual side of things, be it YouTube or Rumble, thank you for listening and watching. Please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe everywhere. Tell us how much you hate our opinions or how much you love them. As always, I have been a Geeky Writer.
I'm Crimson Maroon.
And I'm Sprinks, and we have had our lovely, wonderful host, Hummer. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And we will catch you next time. Later, everybody.
Later, everybody.
Toodaloo.
Bye.